Hi, I'm Emily. About 15 years ago in a medium-sized American city, life seemed almost perfect. I was married to Michael, a charming man, and we had a beautiful daughter named Sophie. But beneath this happy surface, my world was about to fall apart. One evening, Michael came home looking different. His usual warmth was gone, and he seemed cold and distant. He said, "Emily, we need to talk," avoiding my gaze. Then he told me he had filed for divorce. I was shocked. Divorce? Michael, what are you talking about? Is this some kind of joke? But it wasn't a joke. He explained that his mother, Elizabeth, had influenced his decision. She never liked me and believed I was too much for her own daughter. She convinced Michael that I didn't belong in their family. As I tried to understand this betrayal, things got even worse. Elizabeth had created a plan to make sure I would lose not only my husband but also my daughter. They accused me of stealing a large sum of money from the family business. I remember sitting in the lawyer's office, feeling crushed. "Mrs. Emily, the evidence against you is strong," the lawyer said. "It will be hard to prove you're innocent." "But I didn't do it. They're lying," I argued. Despite my protests, the legal system seemed to be against me. Elizabeth's power and money were overwhelming. In court, Michael sat next to her, like a shadow under her control. My lawyer said passionately, "Your Honor, my client is clearly innocent. The accusations are false and based on personal grudges." But Elizabeth's lawyer was clever. "The evidence speaks for itself," he countered. "It's clear that Emily is not only a thief but also an unfit mother." The judge's gavel hit the stand, and the sound echoed in my breaking heart. Custody of Sophie was given to Michael. I saw the smug look on Elizabeth's face as the decision was read. After the court session, I went to Michael, begging, "Please, Michael, don't do this. Sophie needs her mother." But he didn't care. "It's for the best. Emily, you're not who I thought you were," he said coldly. I went back to an empty home, with silence reminding me of Sophie's absence. The walls still echoed with her laughter, making the loss even more painful. Over the next few weeks, I kept trying to reach out, but Michael and Elizabeth made sure I had no contact with Sophie. Every missed visit, every ignored call, felt like a knife twisting deeper into my heart. In the midst of this darkness, I made a promise to myself. They had taken my family and tried to ruin my name, but I wouldn't let them break my spirit. I decided to start over, to create a life Sophie could be proud of if she ever learned the truth. So, I packed my bags, left behind everything I knew, and moved to a new city. It was time to turn the page and start a new chapter in my life. Little did I know, the future would bring surprises and twists I couldn't have imagined. Moving to the new city felt like stepping into a whole new world. I was determined to rebuild my life, not just for myself, but for Sophie. I started a small business, pouring all my heart and effort into it. Slowly, it began to grow, and so did my confidence. During this time, I met Jack, a single father with a heart as big as his smile. One evening, while walking through a busy street market, he said, "Emily, you have an incredible strength. It's really inspiring." I smiled, feeling warmth I hadn't felt in a long time. "Thanks, Jack. Life has thrown a lot at me, but I keep going," I replied. As we spent more time together, our relationship grew stronger. We decided to blend our families. Jack had a son, Lucas, and a daughter, Emma, who quickly became as dear to me as my own Sophie. One day, while we were all having dinner, Lucas asked, "Mom, why doesn't Sophie ever visit? Don't you miss her?" Tears filled my eyes. "Of course I do, Lucas, more than anything, but sometimes things are complicated." Jack squeezed my hand under the table, offering silent support. Despite the love and happiness in our new family, a part of me always ached for Sophie. I tried reaching out, sending letters and gifts, but they were always returned unopened. Michael and Elizabeth had filled Sophie's head with lies about me. They told her I had built my business with stolen money and that I was someone to be ashamed of. One day, I received a letter from Sophie. My heart leaped with hope, but as I read her words, my world fell apart again. "Emily, I don't want anything to do with you. Dad and Grandma told me everything. You're a thief and a liar," she wrote. I broke down, the pain of her words unbearable. Jack found me crying in our bedroom. "Emily, what's wrong?" he asked, concerned. "It's Sophie. She hates me, Jack. She believes all their lies." Jack held me close. "We'll get through this. Emily, you're not alone anymore." As the years went by, our family grew stronger, and my business became a successful company. We moved into a larger home, and our lives were filled with love and laughter. But I never stopped missing Sophie. I often watched the kids play in the backyard, wondering what Sophie was like now. Was she happy? Did she ever think of me? You've built something amazing here, Jack said to me one evening as we sat on the porch, watching the sunset. I just wish Sophie could see this. I nodded, a tear rolling down my cheek. Me too, Jack, me too. Little did I know, the truth about my past was about to come out in a way I never expected. Years passed, and my small startup had grown into a thriving business. I had become a well-known entrepreneur, but my heart still ached for Sophie. Meanwhile, Sophie had grown into a smart and independent young woman attending university. Although we were still estranged, I kept track of her achievements from afar and felt proud of her accomplishments. One day at the university, Sophie overheard a conversation that changed everything. Hidden behind the library shelves, she listened as Michael and Elizabeth spoke. I can't believe how easy it was to fool everyone, especially Emily, Elizabeth gloated. Framing her for theft was the best thing we ever did. Michael smirked and replied, yeah, and the best part is Sophie still believes every lie we told her about her mother. Sophie felt the ground slip beneath her. Shock, anger, and betrayal rushed through her as she realized how they had deceived her. Later that day, she confronted them. How could you lie to me all these years? You made me hate my own mother. Michael tried to explain, but Sophie wouldn't listen. I don't want to hear your excuses. I need to find out the truth for myself. Sophie stormed out, her heart heavy and her mind full of questions. Later, she reached out to me. I was in my office when I got her call. Mom, it's Sophie, can we meet? I need to talk to you, she said, her voice trembling. My heart skipped a beat. Of course, Sophie, anytime. We met at a quiet cafe the next day. The moment I saw her, all the years of pain and longing rushed back. She looked so much like the little girl I remembered, but she was all grown up. Sophie, I've missed you so much, I said, my voice full of emotion. Mom, I heard Grandma and Dad talking. They lied to me about everything, Sophie admitted, her eyes filling with tears. I reached for her hand. I know, Sophie, I've waited every day to tell you the truth. We talked for hours, sharing our pain and clearing up misunderstandings. Sophie was filled with regret. I'm so sorry, Mom, I should have known better. Can you ever forgive me? Tears ran down my face as I hugged her. There's nothing to forgive, Sophie, you're my daughter, and I love you no matter what. Reconnecting with Sophie felt like finding a missing piece of my soul. She started spending more time with me, Jack, and her half-siblings, fitting in like the final piece of a puzzle. One evening, while we were having dinner, Sophie looked around and said, I never knew what a real family felt like until now. I'm so grateful to be here. Jack smiled warmly at her. You've always been part of this family, Sophie. We're just happy you're here with us now. As I watched my family laugh and talk, a sense of peace washed over me. All the years of struggle and pain had led to this moment of joy and reconciliation, but I knew our story wasn't over. The truth about Michael and Elizabeth's lies had been revealed, and it was time for justice. In the courtroom, tension filled the air as Sophie took the stand. It was time to confront the years of deception. Can you tell the court what you heard on the day in question? The prosecutor asked. Sophie's voice was calm, but I could see the pain in her eyes. I overheard my grandmother, Elizabeth, and my father, Michael, bragging about framing my mother for a crime she didn't commit. They did it to keep me away from her, she testified. The courtroom gasped in shock. Michael and Elizabeth sat still, their faces pale. The prosecutor continued, and how did this make you feel? Betrayed, angry. I've been lied to my whole life, Sophie replied. Michael's lawyer tried to challenge Sophie's testimony, but the truth was undeniable. The judge's gavel came down with force, declaring Michael and Elizabeth guilty. They were led away, and when Michael's eyes met mine, there was no regret, only quiet acceptance of his fate. The courtroom buzzed with whispers as the judge gave the sentences. Elizabeth would serve time for conspiracy and perjury, while Michael was sentenced for his role in the false accusations. Outside the courtroom, Sophie hugged me tightly. I'm so sorry, Mom, for everything. I hugged her back, feeling a chapter of our lives close. It's over now, Sophie, we can finally heal. When we got home, Jack and the kids had prepared a small celebration. A banner read Justice and Joy. As we gathered around the table, laughter and chatter filled the room. Jack raised his glass and said, to Emily, a woman of incredible strength and love, and to our family, united and strong. I looked around at the smiling faces of my children, Sophie, Lucas, and Emma, and felt a deep sense of peace. The journey had been long and full of pain, but we had come out stronger. Later that evening, as the kids played in the backyard, Sophie and I sat on the porch watching the sunset. Mom, I can't change the past, But I promise to make up for it every day, Sophie said, holding my hand. I gently squeezed her hand back. You've already made me so proud, Sophie. We have our whole future ahead of us. As the sun set, casting a warm glow over our home, I realized this wasn't just a victory in court. It was a triumph of love, resilience, and the strength of family. And that's the end of my story, a journey from betrayal to justice and, finally, to love and unity. As we close this chapter, I want to leave you with a question. In this story, Sophie grew up believing lies about her mother, Emily, and only discovered the truth as an adult. If you were in Sophie's shoes, realizing you'd been misled about a parent your entire life, would you be able to forgive and rebuild the relationship? Or would the betrayal be too deep to overcome? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more stories. Your support means the world.
The buzzing of my phone jolted me awake at 3:17 a.m. Not the usual buzz of a text or call, but that distinct pattern of a security alert. In my groggy state, I almost dismissed it, but something made me look closer. The notification was from an app I'd never installed, Secure Track Alert, location data accessed. My name is Riley, and that notification was the first crack in the foundation of my perfectly ordinary life. I sat up in bed, careful not to wake Eric. He was sleeping soundly beside me, his back turned to my side as usual lately. The blue light from my phone cast strange shadows across our bedroom walls as I investigated the mysterious app. It wasn't visible on my home screen, but buried deep in my settings, I found it, Secure Track. Running quietly in the background for God knows how long. What the hell? I whispered, my fingers trembling slightly as I tapped through the unfamiliar interface. A map appeared, showing my movements from the past week, my daily drive to the high school where I teach, my Thursday coffee run with Sarah. Even my secret trip to that jewelry store where I'd been planning to buy Eric's anniversary gift. The bedroom suddenly felt too warm, too small. I slipped out of bed and padded down the hallway to the kitchen, passing Zoe's room where my 14-year-old daughter slept peacefully, unaware that her mother's world was starting to tilt on its axis. Under the harsh kitchen lights, I dug deeper into the app. There were more than just location tracks. My text messages, call logs, even my internet history had been monitored. Each discovery felt like another punch to the gut. Who would do this? Why? My hand shook as I reached for a glass of water. The house was dead quiet except for the soft hum of our refrigerator, making the whole situation feel even more surreal. I jumped when my phone buzzed again, another alert. Secure Track Alert, audio recording in progress. My blood ran cold. Audio recording? I frantically searched through the app settings until I found a folder labeled Recordings. The newest file was from 2 days ago, my conversation with Sarah at the coffee shop. I don't know, Sarah, my own voice played back through the phone speaker, tinny and distant. Eric's been different lately. Working late, always on his phone. I quickly stopped the playback, feeling sick. Someone had been listening to my private conversations. Someone had been tracking my every move. And given that this app needed physical access to install, the sound of footsteps upstairs made me freeze. They were heading toward our bedroom's in-sit bathroom, just Eric getting up to use the bathroom, like he did most nights. But for the first time in our 15 years of marriage, those familiar footsteps made my skin crawl. I quickly closed the app and deleted the alerts, my teacher's instincts kicking in. Don't show your hand too early. Gather evidence. Make a plan. My students would probably be shocked to know their Shakespeare-quoting English teacher was capable of such calculating thoughts. Back in bed, I laid awake listening to Eric's steady breathing, my mind racing. The man sleeping next to me, the father of my child, my partner of 15 years, what was he hiding that made him need to track my every move? Or was I the target of something bigger? One thing was certain, I couldn't confront him. Not yet. Not until I understood what I was dealing with. Tomorrow, I'd start digging. Tomorrow, I'd begin unraveling whatever web of secrets had been spun around my life. As I finally drifted off to sleep, my phone buzzed one last time. In my exhaustion, I almost missed it, a text from an unknown number. Be careful what you look for, Riley. Some truths are better left buried. Morning came too quickly. I'd barely slept after discovering the spyware, but I forced myself through the motions of our usual routine. The kitchen filled with the smell of coffee and toast as I packed Zoe's lunch, trying to keep my hands from shaking. Eric came downstairs in his crisp blue suit, the one he always wore for important client meetings. He barely glanced at me as he poured his coffee into his travel mug. "Big meeting today?" I asked, keeping my voice casual while studying his reaction. "Yeah, probably won't be home for dinner." He didn't meet my eyes, focused on stirring his coffee with mechanical precision. "The Morrison account needs extra attention." The Morrison account. Right. The same excuse he'd used 3 times in the past 2 weeks. I wanted to scream, to demand answers about the app on my phone, but instead, I just nodded and turned back to making Zoe's sandwich. "Mom, have you seen my USB drive?" Zoe bounded into the kitchen, her dark hair still wet from the shower. "The blue one with all my coding projects?" "Check the living room," I said. "You were working there last night." Zoe paused, looking between Eric and me. She'd always been perceptive, too smart for her own good sometimes. Her eyes narrowed slightly as she noticed the distance between us, the careful way we avoided touching as Eric moved past me to grab his briefcase. "Dad, you promised to help me with my computer science project this weekend," she said suddenly. "Remember? The one about digital privacy and security." I nearly dropped the knife I was holding. Eric's shoulders tensed visibly. "Sorry, sweetheart," he said, his voice tight. "Something came up at work. Maybe next weekend?" Zoe's face fell, but there was something else in her expression. Suspicion, maybe? Right. Work. Again. Eric kissed her forehead quickly, then headed for the door. "Love you both," he called out, but the words sounded hollow, rehearsed. After he left, Zoe turned to me. "Mom, what's going on?" "What do you mean?" I busied myself cleaning up breakfast dishes. "Dad's been weird lately." "And you?" She hesitated. "You look like you haven't slept. Plus, you're washing that same plate for the 3rd time." I set the plate down, forcing a smile. "Just work stress, honey. You know how it gets during finals season." "Mom, I'm 14, not 4. Zoe crossed her arms. "I know something's wrong. I heard you up last night." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. Another SecureTrack alert. I snatched it up before Zoe could see, but not before catching a glimpse of the message. Audio recording saved, kitchen, 7:15 a.m. "I need to get to school early," I said, grabbing my purse. "Teacher's meeting. Will you be okay taking the bus?" Zoe's face closed off. "Sure, whatever." The drive to school was a blur. In the parking lot, I pulled out my phone and found Sarah's number. We'd been friends since college, and she worked in IT security. If anyone could help me understand what I was dealing with, it would be her. But before I could call, a new text arrived from the unknown number. "Careful who you trust, Riley." Sarah might not be the friend you think she is. My blood ran cold. How did they know I was about to call Sarah? Unless... I looked around the parking lot, suddenly feeling exposed. The spyware must have access to my phone's camera too. A knock on my window made me jump. It was just Dennis from the English department, looking concerned. "You okay, Riley? Meeting's about to start." "Yeah, coming." I grabbed my things, mind racing. I couldn't trust my phone. Couldn't trust my husband. Maybe couldn't even trust my best friend. But worst of all, I was starting to see cracks in my relationship with Zoe, the one person I was trying to protect from all of this. As I walked into school, another text arrived. "Smart girl, your daughter. Maybe she should look into that computer science project more carefully." Lots of interesting things to learn about digital privacy these days. It wasn't just a threat anymore. They were dragging my daughter into this. And that was my breaking point. I found Marcus Lee's office tucked between a laundromat and a Chinese takeout place. The private investigator's weathered face matched his worn leather chair as he reviewed the screenshots I'd taken of the spyware app. "SecureTrack Pro," he said, sliding his reading glasses off. "High-end stuff. Not something you'd find on the regular market. Can you trace it?" He nodded slowly. "Already did. Purchase was made 6 weeks ago through a shell company. But here's where it gets interesting." He turned his computer screen toward me. The buyer used your home address for billing. My stomach lurched. Eric. Thing is, Marcus continued, clicking through several documents. The shell company's been busy. Regular payments to a rental property in Oakwood Heights. Nice place. Way too expensive for a single person unless someone else is helping with the rent. The words tasted bitter in my mouth. Bingo. He pulled up a photograph that made my world tilt sideways. Eric, leaving the building with a woman I'd never seen before. She was younger than me, stunning in that effortless way that made me suddenly aware of every wrinkle around my eyes. His hand rested on the small of her back with familiar intimacy. Vanessa Reed, Marcus said quietly. Works at Eric's firm. Junior partner, fast-tracked for promotion. My phone buzzed. Another secure track alert. I ignored it, focusing on the dates beneath the photos. These are from when he said he was working late on the Morrison account. There's more. Marcus hesitated. The spyware. It wasn't his idea. Based on the email trails I found, Vanessa pushed for it. She's been encouraging him to make a clean break. A clean break. My voice sounded strange, distant. From you and Zoe. He slid a folder across his desk. These are copies of everything I found, including. He tapped one document. A consultation with a divorce attorney. Last week. The fluorescent lights suddenly seemed too bright. The smell of Chinese food wafting through the wall made me nauseated. Why the spyware then? If he's planning to leave anyway? Insurance, maybe. Or control. People do strange things when they're living double lives. My phone buzzed again. This time I looked. Having fun with Marcus? Wonder what Eric would think about his wife meeting strange men in secret. I showed Marcus the message. His expression darkened. They're watching you right now. Probably through your phone's camera. He grabbed a post-it note and scribbled something. This is a burner phone number. Use it to contact me from now on. And Riley? His eyes met mine. Be careful. People who use surveillance like this. They're not playing games. Walking to my car, another text arrived. Tick-tock, Riley. How long before Zoe finds out her mother's sneaking around too? I sat in my car, hands gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. They were trying to gaslight me, make me doubt myself, make me feel guilty for investigating their betrayal. My phone rang. Eric. Hey, his voice was casual, practiced. Just checking if you can pick up Zoe today? Meeting's running late. Meeting. Right. I wondered if Vanessa was sitting next to him right now, maybe running her fingers through his hair the way I used to. Actually, I heard myself say, I have a meeting too. With the Morrison account. The silence on the other end was deafening. The Morrison account? His voice cracked slightly. Yeah. Funny thing about that account, Eric. They closed their business 6 months ago. I started my car. But hey, enjoy your meeting. Say hi to Vanessa for me. I hung up before he could respond, my heart pounding. Through the windshield, I caught my reflection, pale, scared, but something else too. Something harder. My phone lit up with his call again. I declined it, then pulled up the Secure Track app. 2 could play at this surveillance game. If they wanted to watch me, fine. Let them see what happens when you back a teacher into a corner. Time to pay Vanessa Reed a visit. I didn't make it to Vanessa's apartment that day. Instead, I found myself sitting in my classroom during lunch, staring at a stack of unsigned permission slips for tomorrow's field trip. When Zoe appeared in my doorway, "You missed breakfast again," she said, dropping her backpack by my desk. "And Dad didn't come home last night." I forced a smile. He texted. "Late meeting." "Stop." Zoe's voice cracked. "Just stop lying to me." The fluorescent lights hummed overhead as we looked at each other. My daughter's face had lost its childhood softness somewhere in the past year, replaced by sharp angles and knowing eyes that saw too much. "I found something on Dad's laptop," she continued, pulling out her phone. "Remember when he asked me to help organize his work files last weekend?" My stomach dropped. "Zoe." There were emails. Lots of them. To someone named Vanessa. She placed her phone on my desk, screen up. "He's planning to leave us, isn't he?" Before I could respond, a student appeared at the door. "Mrs. Thompson? Principal Warner needs to see you." He says it's urgent. In Warner's office, I found Eric waiting alongside the principal. My husband wore his courtroom smile, the one he used when he was about to destroy someone's credibility on the witness stand. "Riley," Warner began, looking uncomfortable. "Serious allegations have been made about inappropriate contact with a private investigator during school hours. And there are concerns about your emotional stability affecting your teaching performance." I felt the trap closing. Eric had beaten me to the punch, spinning the narrative his way. Of course he had. He was a lawyer. This was what he did for a living. "I'm concerned about you, honey," Eric said, his voice dripping with practiced concern. "The paranoid accusations, the secret meetings. This isn't like you. Let me help." Help? Like he'd helped by installing spyware on my phone? Like he'd helped by planning our divorce while playing Happy Families? "Mr. Thompson suggests taking a leave of absence," Warner added, "to sort things out." My phone buzzed. A secure track alert, probably recording this whole conversation. Recording how they were trying to paint me as unstable, paranoid, unfit to teach. Unfit to parent? "I have documentation," I said quietly, "of everything." Eric's smile flickered. "Including the spyware you and Vanessa installed on my phone. The shell company. The apartment in Oakwood Heights." I turned to Warner. "And recordings of every conversation I've had in the past 6 weeks, including with students and their parents. I wonder how the school board would feel about that level of privacy violation." Warner's face paled. "Privacy violation?" "I'll email you the evidence," I said, standing. "But right now, I need to talk to my daughter." "She found your emails, Eric. The ones to Vanessa about leaving us." Eric's mask cracked. "Zoe found." "Yeah. So while you're trying to destroy my career to cover your tracks, our daughter is sitting in my classroom trying to understand why her father's abandoning her." I walked out, leaving them stammering behind me. In the hallway, my phone buzzed again. Not secure track this time, but a text from Marcus. Got something big. "Vanessa's not who she claims to be. Meet ASAP." Back in my classroom, Zoe was still there, working on her laptop. Lines of code scrolled across her screen. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Fighting back," she said, not looking up. "Did you know most spyware has exploitable backdoors? Dad really should have researched the product better before buying it." I watched my teenage daughter's fingers fly across the keyboard, her face set in concentrated determination. She looked so much like me at that moment, not the scared, gaslit version of me from the past few weeks, but the stronger version I used to be. The version I needed to become again. "Mom?" Zoe finally looked up. "I found something else in the app's code. Something bad. Really bad. I don't think this is just about Dad's affair anymore." My phone buzzed one final time. A new message, not from the unknown number this time, but from Vanessa herself. "We need to talk. Your husband isn't the only one being blackmailed. Meet me tonight?" "It's not just spyware," Zoe explained, her laptop screen casting a blue glow across her face in Marcus Lee's dimly lit office. "It's part of something bigger. Look at these network connections." Marcus leaned forward, squinting at the code. "These IP addresses. They're routing through law firms across the state. Dad's firm isn't the only one involved," I said, remembering Vanessa's text about blackmail. "How many, Zoe?" 17 so far. All using the same spyware package, all connected to a central server. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. "And get this, they're all handling high-profile divorce cases." Marcus whistled low. "Surveillance footage, private conversations, location data. It's a goldmine for divorce settlements." My phone buzzed. "Vanessa again. They're watching. Don't trust Eric. Meet me at Riverside Park, 30 minutes. "It's a trap," Marcus said, reading over my shoulder. "Probably." I grabbed my coat anyway. "But she's scared. You didn't hear her voice in those recordings Zoe found." "Mom, wait." Zoe turned her laptop toward me. "Look at this email thread. Vanessa tried to back out 3 weeks ago. The next day, someone sent her this." The attachment showed Vanessa leaving a building I recognized, the women's shelter where I volunteered. She was helping a young woman inside, both looking over their shoulders. "Her sister," Marcus said quietly. been hiding from an abusive ex for 6 months. Vanessa's been helping her stay off the grid. Until now, the pieces clicked into place. They're using her sister as leverage. Mom? Zoe's voice shook slightly. There's something else. Remember that college fund Dad started for me last month? My stomach dropped. What about it? The money. It's not mine. It's being funneled through shell companies, the same ones paying for the spyware. Dad's helping them launder money. The room spun slightly. Eric wasn't just having an affair or spying on me. He was part of something much darker, something that could destroy not just our marriage, but his career, his freedom, everything. My phone buzzed again. A video this time, showing Zoe walking home from school yesterday. The message below it was simple: back off or she's next. They're bluffing, Marcus started, but I was already heading for the door. Mom, stop. Zoe called after me. We need a plan. I have one. I turned back, seeing my daughter's worried face, so much older than her 14 years. I'm ending this. Tonight. Not alone you're not. Zoe grabbed her laptop. I can hack their network, shut down the spyware remotely. Give you a window. Absolutely not. It's too dangerous. More dangerous than you meeting Vanessa alone? She stood her ground, chin raised defiantly. They're already threatening me. At least let me fight back. Marcus cleared his throat. Kid's right. You need backup. I've got a friend in the FBI cybercrime division. One call. No. I thought of Vanessa's sister, of all the other people being blackmailed. Not yet. If we spook them, people could get hurt. We need to know exactly what we're dealing with first. My phone buzzed one final time. A photo of Eric entering a building I didn't recognize, followed by TikTok. Your husband's about to make a deal that can't be undone. Choose wisely. I looked at my daughter, this brilliant, brave girl who refused to be a victim. At Marcus, who'd become more than just an investigator. My allies in this mess. Okay, I said finally. Here's what we're going to do. Zoe, you and Marcus work on accessing their network. But you stay here, where it's safe. I'll meet Vanessa, find out what she knows. And then? Marcus asked. I thought of all the lies, the manipulation, the threats against my daughter. And then we burn it all down. Every last bit of it. As I left the office, I heard Zoe's fingers already flying across her keyboard, and I smiled grimly. They thought they could threaten a mother's child? They were about to learn exactly how dangerous that could be. Riverside Park was deserted when I arrived, except for Vanessa sitting alone on a bench near the water. She looked different from the photos Marcus had shown me, smaller somehow, more fragile. They're watching, she said without looking at me. But Zoe's program worked. We have about 10 minutes before the spyware comes back online. I sat beside her, keeping my distance. Tell me about my husband's deal. It's not just Eric. Her hands trembled as she pulled out a USB drive. The firm's been running this scheme for years. They install spyware on their own clients' devices, gather dirt on both parties in divorces, then use it to manipulate settlements. The money laundering is just a bonus. My phone buzzed. A text from Zoe. Mom, something's wrong. Dad's not at the office. The message cut off as a familiar voice spoke behind us. I really wished you'd stayed out of this, Riley. Eric stepped out of the shadows, and he wasn't alone. 2 men in suits flanked him, their expressions cold and professional. The thing is, Eric continued, moving closer, you were never supposed to find the spyware. That was Vanessa's mistake. He shot her a disappointed look. She got sloppy. Like you got sloppy with the college fund? I stood, positioning myself between him and Vanessa. Money laundering through our daughter's account? That's low, even for you. It's called protecting our future. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Everything I did was for us. The firm's offering me partner, Riley. Real power. All I had to do was prove my loyalty. By spying on your own family? By showing I understand how the game is played. He gestured to the men beside him. Now we can handle this quietly. The firm's prepared to be generous. A clean divorce, full custody of Zoe, a comfortable settlement. All you have to do is walk away. My phone vibrated again. A single message from Marcus, FBI en route. Stall him. And if I don't walk away? Eric's face hardened. Then things get complicated. For everyone. He pulled out his phone, showing me a live feed of the women's shelter, including Vanessa's sister, and maybe even that bright future Zoe has in computer science. Would be a shame if she got caught hacking corporate servers. You'd threaten your own daughter? The words tasted like ash. I'm protecting her, teaching her how the world really works. He stepped closer, voice softening. Come on, Riley. Take the deal. We can all walk away from this. Behind me, Vanessa made a small, broken sound. I thought of her sister, of all the other families torn apart by this scheme. Of Zoe, watching her father reveal his true nature. You're right about one thing, I said quietly. This ends tonight. I pulled out my own phone, turning it toward him. On the screen, a live stream played, Eric's entire confession, broadcasting directly to Marcus's FBI contact and backed up to secure servers. Eric's face went white. You didn't come alone? I finished. Neither did you. Flashlights suddenly illuminated the park as FBI agents emerged from the darkness. Eric's professional friends disappeared like smoke, leaving him standing alone as agents converged. Riley, please, he begged, all pretense gone. Everything I did was for us. For Zoe. No. I watched as agents cuffed him. Everything you did was for yourself. My phone buzzed one final time. An unknown number. This isn't over. The firm protects its own. I looked at Eric being led away, at Vanessa crying with relief as agents assured her about her sister's safety. At the life I'd built crumbling around me. They were right. It wasn't over. The firm would retaliate. My career might be finished. Our savings were probably gone. And somewhere in Marcus's office, my teenage daughter had just watched her father choose power over family. But standing there in the dark, watching Eric's world collapse, I realized something important. Sometimes you have to burn everything down to see what's worth saving from the ashes. My phone buzzed again. Zoe, Mom, you okay? No, I wasn't okay. But for the first time in weeks, I knew exactly what I was fighting for. The holding cell at the federal building wasn't what I expected. Eric sat there in his expensive suit, somehow looking both powerful and pathetic under the fluorescent lights. 2 FBI agents stood outside, but they'd given us privacy for this conversation. You could have taken the deal, he said quietly. We could have kept our family. Our family? I placed the USB drive Vanessa had given me on the table between us. Let's talk about family, Eric. Let's talk about the 23 other families your firm destroyed this year alone. His jaw tightened. You don't understand how things work in my world. I understand perfectly. I slid printouts across the table, bank statements, emails, surveillance logs. You chose power over people, money over morality. And now you're choosing your firm over your daughter. Leave Zoe out of this. You brought her into this when you used her college fund to launder money. My voice stayed steady, even as my hands shook. When you threatened her future to protect your scheme. A knock at the door made us both jump. Zoe stood there, Marcus right behind her. I hadn't expected her to come, had tried to protect her from this moment. But the determined look in her eyes reminded me so much of myself. I want to talk to him, she said. Eric's face crumpled. Sweetheart. Don't. Zoe sat beside me, her laptop open. I found something in the spyware code. Something Mom doesn't know about yet. My heart stopped. Eric's face went pale. The program wasn't just recording conversations, Zoe continued, her voice trembling slightly. It was fabricating them. Creating fake evidence to use against your client's spouses. And Mom? They were building a case against you too. She turned the laptop toward us. Audio files filled the screen. Doctored conversations, manipulated photos, a complete fabricated history of inappropriate behavior with students. Insurance, Eric whispered. In case you ever discovered. In case I ever threaten your precious firm? The rage I'd been containing finally boiled over. You were going to destroy my career, take Zoe away from me? The firm required leverage on everyone involved. Even me. He reached for Zoe's hand, but she pulled away. I never wanted to use it. But you would have, Zoe said. Just like you used Vanessa's sister against her. Just like you're using everyone. A commotion outside drew our attention. Through the window, I saw Vanessa being led in by more agents, her face tear-streaked but determined. Behind her came a parade of suited men, senior partners from the firm, their facades of power crumbling as federal agents escorted them in. "They're all turning on each other," Marcus said from the doorway. "The whole house of cards is coming down." Eric stood abruptly, desperation in his eyes. "Riley, please. I can still fix this. The firm has connections, resources." "Stop." Zoe's voice cut through his pleading. "Just stop lying. Mom found the spyware, but I found the truth. And I'm the one who cracked their encryption. Me. Your daughter. The one you were ready to sacrifice." She stood, gathering her laptop. "I used to think you were the smartest person I knew. Now I realize you're just another bully who thought he could control everyone through their secrets." She turned to me. "Can we go home now, Mom?" Eric reached for her again. "Zoe, everything I did was for yourself," she finished. "Mom protected me. You just protected your power." As we turned to leave, Eric called out one last time. "What happens now?" I looked at my daughter, this amazing person who'd grown stronger through all this pain. At Marcus, who'd become a true friend. Even at Vanessa through the window, who'd finally chosen truth over fear. "Now." I met Eric's eyes one last time. "Now we rebuild. Without you." Walking out, Zoe slipped her hand into mine. Behind us, Eric's world continued to unravel, but ahead of us stretched something new, a future built on truth instead of secrets, strength instead of power, love instead of control. My phone buzzed one final time. A message from the school board, position secure. Evidence of firm's manipulation clear. When can you return to teaching? I smiled, squeezing Zoe's hand. We had a lot of healing ahead, but for the first time in months, the path forward was clear. 6 months later, I stood in our new apartment, watching Zoe set up her computer station in what used to be our dining room. The space was smaller than our old house, but somehow it felt more like home. "Mom," Zoe called out, excitement in her voice. The cybersecurity program accepted me for their summer workshop. I moved to look at her acceptance email, remembering how different things had been half a year ago. The trial was still ongoing, but Eric had pleaded guilty to reduced charges in exchange for testimony against the firm. The scandal had rocked the legal community, exposing similar schemes at law firms across the state. My phone buzzed. A text from Vanessa. "Coffee tomorrow? Sarah's coming too. We need your input on the shelter's new security system." That had been unexpected, how Vanessa had transformed from perceived enemy to ally. After everything settled, she'd thrown herself into helping other women escape controlling relationships, using her insider knowledge of surveillance tactics to strengthen the shelter's protection protocols. Think fast. Zoe tossed me a small package. Inside was a USB drive shaped like a key. "It's clean," she added with a grin. I checked. We could joke about it now, but those weeks of discovering the spyware had changed us both. Zoe had channeled her pain into purpose, becoming the youngest intern at Marcus's new cybersecurity consulting firm. And I, "Professor Thompson?" A student's voice called from my laptop. Right. Office hours. Even through video chat, teaching felt different now. Better somehow. More real. "Just a minute," I called back, then turned to Zoe. "Dinner at 7? Sarah's bringing that pasta you like." "Can't." Meeting Marcus and his FBI friend about the workshop curriculum. She paused, then added softly, "Dad's sentencing is next week." The air thickened slightly. We'd both received letters from Eric, apologies, explanations, promises to do better. They sat unopened in my desk drawer. Some bridges, once burned, shouldn't be rebuilt. My phone buzzed again. An unknown number. "You thought you won, but power always protects its own." I showed it to Zoe, who was already typing. Traced it. "Just another angry ex-partner from the firm. Want me to forward it to Marcus?" "No." I deleted the message. Some people never learn that real power isn't about control. The doorbell rang. "Sarah, early for our prep session." We were presenting at next month's educational conference about digital privacy in schools. Turns out my experience had value beyond just survival. Coming. I called out, but Zoe was already opening the door. She and Sarah had grown close, bonding over coding and their shared love of terrible science fiction movies. "Hey, warrior women," Sarah said, dropping bags of takeout on the counter. "Ready to change the world?" I looked around our new home, at Zoe's workspace where she helped others protect their privacy, at the conference materials spread across my desk, at the friendship that had grown between Sarah and Vanessa as they worked to strengthen the shelter's security. "You know what's funny?" I said, grabbing plates. "When this all started, I thought it was about revenge. About making Eric pay for betraying us. But it wasn't," Zoe finished, setting up her laptop. "It was about choosing who we wanted to be after the betrayal." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "When did you get so wise, kid?" "When my mom showed me that strength isn't about having power over others." Zoe smiled at me. "It's about helping others find their power." My phone buzzed one last time. "Marcus, got that teaching position approved. You start the cybersecurity awareness program next semester." Zoe's curriculum suggestions were brilliant. I looked at my daughter, this amazing person who'd grown not despite our challenges, but because of how we'd faced them together. At Sarah, who'd become more than just a friend. At the life we'd built from the ashes of betrayal. Some scars never fully heal, but they remind us of our strength. And sometimes, the best revenge isn't about destroying your enemies, it's about building something better from the ruins they left behind. "All right," I said, opening the takeout. "Let's change the world." I never expected my daughter to show up at my doorstep married. Not on a Tuesday night, not after a double shift that left my feet screaming, and definitely not to a man I'd only met twice. My name is Maggie, and until that moment, I thought I knew everything about my daughter Lily. 24 years of being her only parent had given me that confidence. But there she stood on my porch, her hand intertwined with Jake's. Both of them wearing matching nervous smiles and gold bands that caught the porch light. "Surprise, Mom." Lily's voice cracked with forced cheerfulness. "We did it." I gripped my purse strapped tighter, the vinyl creaking under my fingers. The smell of grease from the diner still clung to my uniform, and suddenly I felt every one of my 52 years weighing me down. "Did what exactly?" I managed to ask, though I already knew the answer. Jake stepped forward, all charm and perfect teeth. "We got married, Mrs. O'Hara. This morning, actually." He wrapped his arm around Lily's waist. "We wanted it to be spontaneous, romantic." "Romantic," I echoed, the word tasting bitter in my mouth. Through the fog of exhaustion, memories of another impulsive marriage, my own, flashed through my mind. "Come inside, both of you." My small living room felt even smaller with 3 people in it. Jake settled onto my couch like he belonged there, while Lily perched on the armrest beside him, her legs bouncing with nervous energy. "Mom, I know what you're thinking," Lily started. "Do you?" I set my purse down carefully, buying time to steady my voice. "Because I'm thinking about how you've known Jake for 4 months. 5, Jake corrected, as if that extra month made all the difference. 5 months, I said. "And neither of you has a steady job, or a place to live, or—" "Actually," Lily interrupted, her eyes lighting up with that familiar determination I'd seen since she was little. "We were hoping we could stay here. Just until we get on our feet." The ceiling fan whirred above us, pushing around stale air. I noticed Jake's eyes darting around the room, taking in the worn furniture, the faded wallpaper I'd been meaning to replace for years. Something in his gaze made my skin prickle. "Of course you can stay," I heard myself say, because what choice did I have? "The spare room needs clearing out, but—" "Thank you, Mrs. O'Hara," Jake cut in, standing up smoothly. "We really appreciate this. I promise we won't be a burden." There was something practiced about his gratitude, like a sales pitch he'd given before. But Lily was beaming at him like he'd just promised her the moon, and I swallowed my unease. "I need to shower," I said, retreating toward the hallway. "We can talk more over dinner." "Oh, we already ate," Lily called after me. "But Jake can bring our bags in while you clean up." In the bathroom, I turned the water as hot as I could stand it. Through the thin walls, I heard them whispering, followed by the front door opening and closing. My reflection in the steamy mirror looked haunted. The last time I'd seen that look on my face was 25 years ago, when I'd made my own impulsive decision that changed everything. But this was different, I told myself. Lily was smarter than I had been. Jake seemed nice enough. So why couldn't I shake this feeling that I just invited a fox into my henhouse? As I stepped into the shower, I heard them moving around in the spare room, their muffled laughter floating through the walls. My daughter was married. To a stranger. And now they were both living under my roof. I closed my eyes and let the water drum against my face, wondering how long it would take before I discovered exactly what kind of man my new son-in-law really was. It's amazing how quickly a house can change. After just 1 week of Lily and Jake living with me, my quiet sanctuary felt like a pressure cooker about to blow. I was washing dishes when I heard them arguing in the spare room again. Their voices carried through the thin walls, muffled but tense. These spats had become more frequent, always about money, always ending with Lily in tears and Jake storming out. The front door slammed right on cue. I dried my hands and waited, counting down in my head. 3, 2, 1. Mom. Lily appeared in the kitchen doorway, eyes red-rimmed. Do you have any aspirin? Top cabinet, left side. I watched her reach for the bottle, noticing how her wedding ring caught the afternoon light. Want to talk about it? It's nothing. She swallowed 2 pills dry. Jake's just stressed about job hunting. I bit back the urge to point out that Jake spent more time networking at bars than actually looking for work. Instead, I asked, how about we grab lunch? My treat. Can't. Jake's taking the car to meet some business contact. She slumped against the counter. He thinks this guy might have an opportunity for him. Another opportunity. Last week it was cryptocurrency. The week before that, some multi-level marketing scheme involving essential oils. The mail slot clattered, and I welcomed the excuse to step away. Bills, junk mail, and a thick envelope addressed to Jake Turner. It had fallen open slightly, revealing what looked like bank statements. My stomach twisted as I caught a glimpse of red numbers. Lily, honey? I called out, keeping my voice steady. Could you come here? But when I turned around, it wasn't Lily standing there. It was Jake. He must have come back through the side door. I'll take those. He snatched the mail from my hands, his charm nowhere in sight. Wouldn't want you troubling yourself with our personal matters. This is my house, I said, surprising myself with how firm my voice sounded. If there are financial issues. There aren't. His smile returned, but it didn't reach his eyes. Everything's under control. I just need a little time to get things sorted. Jake. Lily appeared behind him. I thought you left. Forgot my phone. He kissed her cheek, tucking the mail into his back pocket. Don't wait up, babe. This meeting might run late. After he left, Lily helped me prepare dinner, chattering about Jake's potential business ventures like a kid talking about Santa Claus. I nodded along, but my mind kept returning to those red numbers. That evening, my friend Carla called. How's married life treating you? She asked, her voice dripping with sarcasm. I think Jake's in trouble, Carla. I lowered my voice, though I was alone in my bedroom. Deep trouble. What kind of trouble? I don't know yet. But something's not right. I described the mysterious meetings, the arguments, the glimpse of those bank statements. Want me to run a background check? As a real estate agent, Carla had connections. Just to be safe? I hesitated. It felt like a betrayal, but the memory of Jake's cold eyes when he grabbed that mail haunted me. Give me his full name and date of birth if you can get it, she said. I'll be discreet. After hanging up, I heard the front door open. Jake's voice drifted up the stairs, followed by Lily's excited squeal. I crept to the landing and listened. It's perfect, babe, he was saying. Once we get the loan, we can start fresh. No more living under mommy's roof. But how? Lily asked. We don't have any collateral. Don't worry about that. Jake's voice dropped lower, but I caught his next words clearly. Your mom's house is worth way more than we need. I gripped the banister, my knuckles turning white. In that moment, I realized this wasn't just about protecting my daughter anymore. I was fighting for everything I'd spent my life building. And Jake Turner had just declared war. Carla's text came at 3 a.m. Check your email. Now. I sat up in bed, fumbling for my reading glasses. The bright screen made my eyes water as I opened the attachment. What I saw made my stomach drop. Jake Turner wasn't even his real name. I scrolled through page after page of court records, bankruptcy filings, and restraining orders. James Thomas Kelly had quite the history. 3 ex-wives, all of whom he'd financially ruined. The pattern was always the same: marriage, joint accounts, forged documents, emptied savings. Then he'd vanish, only to resurface in another state with a new name and a new target. My hands were shaking as I got dressed. The pre-dawn air felt electric as I paced my kitchen, waiting for Carla to arrive. When headlights swept across my window, I nearly jumped out of my skin. "You look like hell," Carla said, stepping inside. She carried a thick manila folder. "There's more. Worse than 3 previous wives? He's got warrants in 2 states." She spread the documents across my kitchen table. "And look at this, he's already filed paperwork to add his name to your deed." "That's impossible." But there it was in black and white, a half-completed application with my forged signature. I never signed anything. "Keep looking." Buried in the stack was a loan application. My house was listed as collateral for $250,000. The signature looked exactly like mine. "He must have practiced," I whispered, touching the forgery. "All those times he was job hunting, he was practicing my signature." A floorboard creaked upstairs. We froze, staring at each other as footsteps approached the stairs. "Mom," Lily called out. "Why are you up so early?" Carla and I scrambled to gather the papers. I shoved them into the folder just as Lily appeared in the doorway, wrapped in her bathrobe. "Carla," Lily blinked in confusion. "What's going on?" "Just some real estate stuff," Carla lied smoothly. "Your mom's thinking about refinancing." At 3 in the morning? Before I could answer, the side door opened. James, whatever his name was, stepped in from the garage. He wore a suit I'd never seen before, looking fresh despite the early hour. "Ladies," he said, his smile never wavering. "Having a party without me?" My skin crawled at how easily he could lie, how natural that charm seemed even now. I clutched the folder tighter. "Just catching up," I said, matching his casual tone. "You're out early." "Another meeting." He kissed Lily's cheek. "Actually, I need to talk to you about something, Maggie." "Got a minute?" "I should go," Carla announced, but her eyes met mine with clear warning. "Don't let him know what you know." After Carla left, Lily drifted back upstairs to shower. Jake sat across from me at the kitchen table, exactly where those damning documents had been spread moments ago. "I've been thinking," he began, "about how to thank you for your hospitality." "Oh, I want to help with the mortgage. In fact," he reached into his jacket, "I've got some papers that could really ease your financial burden." He pulled out a document identical to the one I'd just seen. My stomach lurched. "Just need your signature," he said, sliding it across the table. "Then we can really be family." I stared at the paper, at his manicured hands, at the wedding ring that probably wasn't his first. Or second. Or third. "I'll need to think about it," I heard myself say. Something dark flickered behind his eyes, just for a moment. "Of course. Take your time." He stood, straightening his tie. "But not too long. Opportunities like this don't last forever." The threat in his voice was subtle but clear. As he headed upstairs to join Lily, I pulled out my phone and typed a quick text to Carla. "He's making his move. What do we do?" Her response came seconds later: "We fight back. But first, we need to tell Lily the truth." I closed my eyes, remembering the adoring way my daughter looked at her husband. This would destroy her. But if I didn't act soon, he would destroy us all. The folder of evidence felt like it was burning a hole in my purse as I walked to my neighbor Tom's house. I needed someone outside this mess to tell me if I was crazy, if I was overreacting. Most of all, I needed someone who wouldn't judge me for what I was about to do. Tom was watering his roses when I approached. He took one look at my face and turned off the hose. "Coffee?" he asked, already heading toward his door. Inside his kitchen, everything was neat and organized, the opposite of the chaos my life had become. Tom set 2 mugs on the counter and waited while I spread out James's documentation across his table. "Jesus," he whispered, examining the forged signatures. "And Lily has no idea? She's in love." The words tasted bitter. "Or thinks she is. Have you gone to the police?" I shook my head. "The moment I do that, I lose her. You don't know Lily, she'll see it as a betrayal. She'll run away with him." Tom studied the restraining orders from Jake's previous wives. "Maybe that's better than letting him steal everything you've worked for." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A text from Carla, 911. Jake at bank right now. Trying to process loan. My hands started shaking so badly I nearly dropped the phone. Tom read the message over my shoulder. Go, he said. I'll clean this up and bring the documents to your house. I broke every speed limit getting to the bank. Through the glass doors, I could see Jake at a desk with a loan officer, wearing that same perfect suit, that same perfect smile. My entrance must have looked wild because several heads turned. This man is committing fraud, I announced, loud enough for everyone to hear. Jake's smile flickered but didn't fade. Maggie, he said smoothly, there seems to be a misunderstanding. I'm just helping with your refinancing, remember? We discussed this. The loan officer looked between us, confused. Mrs. O'Hara? You did sign these documents, correct? Those signatures are forged. My voice shook. And this man isn't Jake Turner. His real name is James Kelly, and he's wanted in 2 states. The room went silent. Jake's facade cracked for just a moment, showing something dark and dangerous underneath. Then my phone rang, Lily's ringtone. Mom. She was crying. Why is Tom here with a bunch of papers about Jake? What are you doing? Jake stood up, straightening his tie. I should go check on my wife, he said to the loan officer. She sounds upset. Don't you dare. I stepped between him and the door. Don't you go near her. Or what? He leaned in close, whispering so only I could hear. You'll lose her anyway. At least my way. She gets to keep her illusions about love. The loan officer was on the phone, presumably with security. Jake used the distraction to slip past me, but I grabbed his arm. You want to play it this way? He hissed. Fine. But remember, I'm the one she trusts. I'm the one she'll believe. And by the time she realizes the truth, it'll be too late for both of you. He yanked free and walked out, leaving me standing there with my evidence and my fury. My phone kept ringing Lily, then Carla, then Lily again. The loan officer approached cautiously. Mrs. O'Hara? We'll need to file a report. But I was already moving. Because Jake was right about one thing, Lily would believe him. Unless I dialed a number I'd been staring at for days. Angela Kelly, Jake's first wife. Hello. A tired voice answered. My name is Maggie O'Hara, I said, walking to my car. And I think we need to talk about James Kelly. There was a long pause. Then, is he using the name Jake Turner? Yes. Get your daughter and get out of there, she said. No. Before he does what he did to me. I started the engine, my mind racing. I can't leave. This is my house, my life. Then you better be ready for war, Angela replied. Because that's exactly what you're in for. As I drove home, I realized she was right. This wasn't just about protecting my daughter anymore. This was about stopping a predator before he could hurt anyone else. And I was done playing nice. Angela Kelly's words haunted me as I pulled into my driveway. The house was dark except for the kitchen light, where I could see Jake and Lily's silhouettes through the window. They were arguing again. I sat in my car watching them. Jake's gestures were controlled, reasonable, while Lily's grew more frantic. Classic manipulation. I'd seen it before, lived it before, but never from this side of the glass. My phone lit up with a text from Angela. Meeting arranged with Sarah and Michelle tomorrow. Jake's wives number 2 and number 3. Bringing proof. I typed back, how did you survive it? I didn't. Not really. Still paying off the debts he left me with. The kitchen door slammed. Lily stormed out, mascara streaking her cheeks. She spotted my car and froze, then turned and ran toward the backyard. Jake appeared in the doorway, watching her go. When he noticed me, he smiled and waved, like we were neighbors sharing a pleasant evening. I got out of my car, clutching my purse with its damning evidence. Where's she going? Just needs to cool off. He leaned against the doorframe. You know how emotional she gets. Like her mother. The casual cruelty in his voice made my fingers itch. What did you say to her? Actually, we were discussing you. His smile turned sharp. About how your paranoia is tearing this family apart. How you can't let her grow up be happy. Happy. I laughed, the sound harsh in the quiet night. Like your other wives were happy? His expression didn't change, but something cold flickered in his eyes. Careful, Magje. Some might call that slander. Some might call forging signatures and stealing homes fraud. Prove it. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. But ask yourself what happens to Lily when you do. When she realizes her mother destroyed her marriage. When everyone sees how you drove away the only man who ever loved her. You don't love her. No, he agreed easily. But she believes I do. And that's what matters, isn't it? A noise made us both turn. Lily stood at the corner of the house, her face pale in the porch light. How much had she heard? Mom. Her voice cracked. What's going on? Jake moved first, reaching for her. Your mother's upset, baby. She's been imagining things. Don't touch her. The words came out like a growl. Mom, stop it. Lily pulled away from both of us. This is exactly what I was telling Jake. You're trying to control everything, just like always. Lily, please. No, I'm not a child anymore. I love Jake and he loves me, and you need to accept that or... She swallowed hard. Or maybe we shouldn't be here at all. Jake's arms slid around her shoulders, comforting and possessive. Maybe that's best, sweetheart. We could leave tonight, start fresh somewhere else. My blood ran cold. This was his play. Isolate her, take her away, then bleed her dry like all the others. I couldn't let that happen. But if I showed my evidence now, she'd run straight into his trap. No one's leaving tonight, I said, forcing my voice steady. It's late. We're all tired. Let's talk in the morning. Jake's eyes narrowed, suspicious of my sudden calm. Good. Let him wonder what I was planning. Fine, Lily muttered, pulling away from Jake. But this conversation isn't over. I watched them go inside, my daughter leaning on the shoulder of a predator. My phone buzzed again, another text from Angela. Got the police reports ready. Meeting set for 10 a.m. Tomorrow then. Tomorrow I'd have 3 of Jake's ex-wives, all their evidence, and one chance to save my daughter without losing her forever. But tonight, I looked up at my bedroom window, where a shadow moved against the light. Tonight, I had to share my roof with a man who'd destroyed 3 families before ours. A man who was probably already planning his escape route. Game on, James Kelly, I whispered to the night air. Let's see who breaks first. The coffee shop felt too bright, too normal for what was about to happen. Angela Kelly sat across from me, her hands wrapped around an untouched latte. Sarah and Michelle flanked her, 3 women united by the same betrayal. 3 versions of my daughter's future if I didn't stop this. He's getting sloppy, Sarah said, spreading photos across the table. Used to wait at least a year before trying for the house. With you, it's been what? 2 months. He's desperate, Michelle added. Lost everything in the last scam. A bell chimed. Lily walked in, her face hardening when she saw me. Jake wasn't with her, small mercies. What is this? She stopped at our table, arms crossed. Another intervention? Sit down, I said quietly. Please. These women, Lily started, are Jake's wives, Angela cut in. Or rather, James Kelly's wives. Lily's face went pale, but she lifted her chin. You're lying. Marriage certificate, Sarah laid it out. Divorce papers. Police reports. Bank statements, Michelle added. Forged documents. Sound familiar? Lily's hands trembled as she picked up a photo. Jake with Angela, both younger, smiling at their wedding. The same smile he'd given her. This is... She swallowed hard. This can't be. The coffee shop door chimed again. Jake stood there, taking in the scene with calculated precision. His eyes locked with mine, and for a moment, I saw the mask slip completely. Quite the reunion, he said, walking over. Angela. Sarah. Michelle. You all look, well, exactly how I left you. Jake. Lily's voice cracked. What are they talking about? He sighed, pulling up a chair. It's complicated, baby. These women, they're from a dark time in my life. I was going to tell you. Like hell you were, Angela snapped. You were going to drain her accounts and disappear, just like you did to us. Is that true? Lily turned to him. The loan applications Mom found. The forged signatures. Jake's face softened with practiced concern. Your mother's been poisoning you against me from day one. Yes, I made mistakes. Yes, I have a past. But what we have is different. Different. Michelle laughed bitterly. That's what he told all of us. Lily, I reached for her hand. Look at the evidence. Look at what he's done. But Jake was faster. He grabbed Lily's arm, pulling her close. We can start fresh. Right now. Leave all this behind. I love you. Isn't that what matters? Don't touch her. I stood up, but Jake's next words froze me. Tell them about the baby, Lily. The world stopped. Lily's hand drifted to her stomach, tears streaming down her face. I'm 6 weeks, she whispered. Jake's triumphant smile told me everything. He'd won. No matter what evidence we had, no matter what truths we revealed, he'd ensured his connection to our family was permanent. Congratulations, he said to me, his voice dripping with mock sincerity. You're going to be a grandmother. Lily pulled away from all of us, backing toward the door. I can't. She ran. Jake moved to follow, but Angela blocked his path. Let her process, he said smoothly. Maggie, you've done enough damage for one day, don't you think? I watched my daughter disappear into the parking lot, my chest tight with panic. Jake gathered his coat, every movement deliberate. By the way, he paused at my shoulder. I filed those loan papers this morning. Turns out your signature's already on them. Funny how that works. He walked out, leaving me with 3 broken women and a pile of useless evidence. He always has a backup plan, Sarah said softly. Always finds a way to make you doubt yourself. My phone buzzed, a text from Lily. Don't follow me. I need time. I sank back into my chair, the weight of failure crushing me. I'd tried to protect my daughter, but instead, I'd pushed her further into Jake's arms. Now he had everything, my daughter, my future grandchild, and soon my home. What do I do? I asked the women who'd lived this nightmare before me. Angela reached across the table, gripping my hand. We fight. Harder than before. Because now it's not just about Lily anymore. 3 days of silence from Lily felt like 3 years. I'd worn a path in my kitchen floor from pacing when Tom knocked on my door that rainy evening. She's at my house, he said without preamble. She needs you. I found Lily curled up on Tom's couch, a stack of papers clutched to her chest. Her eyes were red, but clearer than I'd seen them in months. He emptied our account, she said as I sat beside her. Every penny of my savings. And I found these in his car. She handed me the papers. Loan documents, bank statements, a half-dozen driver's licenses with Jake's photo but different names. And ultrasound photos, not hers, but dated years ago, with another woman's name. He's used the pregnancy story before, she whispered. I'm not. I was never. The front door opened. Jake stood there, rain dripping from his expensive suit. Tom moved to block his path, but Jake just smiled. Family meeting? He stepped inside. How convenient. I have the final loan papers right here. Just need those signatures, Maggie, and we can all move forward. There's nothing to move forward to. Lily stood up, shaking. I know about the other pregnancies. The other wives. The other scams. Something dangerous flickered across Jake's face. Baby, you're confused. Your mother's gotten in your head. Stop. Lily's voice cracked. Just stop lying. Everything I did was for us. He switched tactics, his tone softening. Yes, I made mistakes. But the money's real now. One signature and we're set for life. Using my mother's house as collateral? Lily laughed bitterly. Like you used Angela's? And Sarah's? And Michelle's. Jake's charm vanished. You ungrateful little. He lunged forward. I moved without thinking, putting myself between them. Touch her and it's assault charges on top of the fraud. Fraud. His laugh was ugly. Your signature's already on those papers, remember? Good luck proving otherwise. Actually, Tom spoke up, holding up his phone. I think this conversation will help with that. Jake's eyes widened as he realized he was being recorded. He backed toward the door, calculations running behind his eyes. You really want to do this? He snarled. Fine. But remember, I've got nothing left to lose. You really think this ends here? No, I said quietly. It ends at the police station. Angela, Sarah, and Michelle are there right now, filing charges. All they needed was one more victim to establish a pattern. And proof of intent, Lily added, her voice stronger now. Like this conversation. Jake's hand twitched toward his pocket, his car keys. But Tom was faster, blocking the door. Move, Jake growled. Make me. The punch was swift, but Tom was ready. They grappled, crashing into the coffee table. I grabbed Lily, pulling her back as Jake broke free and bolted for the door. He made it 3 steps into the rain before police lights flooded the street. "Perfect timing, Carla," I whispered, watching my friend step out of her car, where she'd been waiting with her phone ready to make the call. Jake tried to run, but slipped on the wet grass. As the officers approached, he looked back at us, at Lily specifically, one last time. "I did love you," he said. "In my way." Lily stepped forward, out of my protective grip. "No. You loved what you thought you could take from me. There's a difference." We watched them put him in the police car. Lily leaned against me, her body shaking with sobs or laughter. Maybe both. "Mom," she whispered. "I'm sorry. For not trusting you. For not seeing." "Sure." I held her closer. "You saw it when it mattered." Tom came up beside us, sporting what would become an impressive black eye. "Let's get you both inside. I think this calls for something stronger than coffee." As we turned to go in, I caught a glimpse of our reflection in Tom's window, mother and daughter, battered but unbroken. Jake had tried to tear us apart, but in the end, he'd only proved what I'd known all along. Our bond was stronger than any con man's game. The rain washed away Jake's tire tracks as the police car disappeared around the corner, taking with it all his false promises and paper dreams. 6 months after Jake's arrest, I found myself back at the same coffee shop where everything had fallen apart. This time, I sat across from Angela, Sarah, and Michelle, watching them pass around photos of Jake's sentencing. 10 years, Angela said, sliding the envelope across the table. Plus restitution to all of us. Small comfort, Michelle added, stirring her coffee. But better than nothing. The bell chimed, and Lily walked in. She looked different now, stronger, more herself. The shadows under her eyes had faded, replaced by a quiet determination I recognized from my own mirror. "Sorry I'm late," she said, pulling up a chair. The support group ran long. She'd been attending meetings with other fraud victims, turning her pain into purpose. Sometimes she came home angry, sometimes in tears, but always moving forward. "How's the house hunting going?" Sarah asked. "Found a small apartment," Lily smiled. "Mom's helping with the deposit." Speaking of help, Angela pulled out some papers. The settlement money came through. We thought, maybe, we could do something good with it. The proposal laid out a foundation, a network to help other victims of romance fraud. Legal support, counseling, emergency funds. All the things we'd wished we'd had. "We need someone to run it," Michelle said, looking at Lily. "Someone who understands both sides of the story." Lily's hands trembled slightly as she read the details. I don't know if I'm qualified." "You are," I said quietly. "Because you found the strength to walk away." The coffee shop door opened again. Tom walked in, his black eye long-heeled. He'd been coming around more often lately, bringing dinner or fixing things around the house. Neither of us had put a name to it yet, but something was growing there, slow and careful. "Ladies," he nodded to the group. "Mind if I steal Maggie for a minute?" Outside, the spring air carried the scent of new beginnings. Tom handed me an envelope. "It came today," he said. "Thought you'd want to see it." Inside was a letter from Jake, postmarked from prison. My hands shook as I read. "Maggie, I've had time to think. About patterns, choices, the lies we tell ourselves. I'm not asking for forgiveness, I don't deserve it. But I want you to know you were right. About everything. Especially about Lily. Take care of her. She's lucky to have a mother who sees clearly what love really means. James." "You okay?" Tom asked. I looked through the window at Lily, animated now as she discussed plans for the foundation. At Angela, Sarah, and Michelle, who'd turned their pain into purpose. At my own reflection, no longer haunted by fear. "You know what's strange?" I folded the letter carefully. I thought catching him would feel like victory. But this, watching Lily heal, seeing these women support each other, this feels more like justice. Tom's hand found mine. "Sometimes the best revenge is living well." "Mom." Lily appeared in the doorway. "We need your input on something." Inside, the women had spread out budget proposals and outreach plans. They were building something new from the ashes of their shared trauma. "We're thinking of calling it Clear Sight," Lily explained. "Because that's what saved us all in the end. Being able to see through the lies. See what really matters." I looked at my daughter, really looked at her. The naive girl who'd shown up married on my doorstep was gone. In her place stood a woman who'd faced her mistakes and chosen to grow from them. "What do you think?" she asked. I squeezed her hand. "It's exactly what we need." As we worked into the evening, planning and dreaming, I realized something. Jake had tried to destroy us, but he'd accidentally created something stronger. A network of women who refused to be victims, a daughter who'd found her purpose, and a mother who'd learned that protection sometimes means letting go. The coffee shop lights dimmed, signaling closing time. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new stories, new women needing help. But for now, in this moment, we were exactly where we needed to be. Clear-sighted, at last.
I never thought I'd be the one to discover my mom was dying. Not like that, anyway. Not by accidentally walking in on my parents having what they thought was a private conversation in our kitchen at midnight. My name is Ella, and until that night 3 months ago, I was just your average 17-year-old whose biggest worry was whether I'd get into the archaeology program at University of Chicago. Now? Well, now everything's different. I remember exactly how the linoleum felt under my bare feet as I crept downstairs for a glass of water. The house was dark except for the soft glow coming from the kitchen. I heard my dad's voice first, low and strained in a way I'd never heard before. "We have to tell her, Sarah. The treatments aren't working anymore." "Not yet," my mom whispered back. "Please, Mark. She has her college applications to focus on. Her whole future ahead of her." I froze on the last step, my hand gripping the banister so tight my knuckles turned white. "Sarah, she's going to notice something's wrong eventually. The doctors said 3 months, maybe 4. Stop." Mom's voice cracked. "Just stop." I must have made some sort of sound because they both went quiet. Then Mom's chair scraped against the floor and I panicked, practically running back upstairs. I shut my bedroom door as quietly as I could and slid down against it, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. The next morning, I watched Mom make breakfast like nothing was wrong. She hummed while flipping pancakes, her favorite apron tied around her waist. But now I noticed things I hadn't before. How loose the apron had become, the slight tremor in her hands as she poured coffee, the way she leaned against the counter when she thought no one was looking. "Everything okay, sweetie?" she asked, catching me staring. "You've barely touched your breakfast." I forced a smile. "Yeah, just nervous about that history test today." Dad looked up from his newspaper and for a second our eyes met. There was something there, guilt maybe or fear. He quickly looked away. "Well, you've always been great at history," Mom said, reaching over to squeeze my hand. "It's in your blood. Your grandfather was an amazing historian, you know." "I know, Mom. You've told me about 1,000,000 times." I tried to keep my voice light, but my throat felt tight. Later that day, I sat in the school library during lunch, trying to focus on my archaeology textbook, but instead finding myself looking up cancer symptoms on my phone. Mrs. Green, the librarian, must have noticed something was off because she brought me a cup of tea without saying a word. My best friend Maya dropped into the chair across from me. "Okay, Spill. You've been weird all day." I closed my phone quickly. "It's nothing." "Ball," she said, but didn't push further. That's what I love about Maya. She knows when to back off. The rest of the day passed in a blur. When I got home, Mom was asleep on the couch, a blanket pulled up to her chin. I stood there watching her breathe, counting the rises and falls of her chest. She looked so small suddenly, so fragile. Dad came up behind me, putting his hand on my shoulder. "Let her rest," he said softly. I turned to look at him, and the words were right there on the tip of my tongue. But something in his expression stopped me. He looked lost, scared even. In that moment, I realized that maybe he needed to pretend everything was okay just as much as Mom did. So I nodded and went upstairs to my room where I pulled out my college applications. The University of Chicago's deadline was coming up, and Mom was right. I had my whole future ahead of me. I just didn't know how much of that future would include her. Changes in Mom happened so fast after that night. Felt like watching a time-lapse video where everything speeds up except you're stuck moving at normal speed. 2 weeks after I overheard their conversation, she couldn't even make it up the stairs without Dad's help. I was sitting at the kitchen table, pretending to study while actually watching them through the doorway. Mom's hand gripped the railing, her knuckles white, while Dad hovered behind her like he was afraid she'd shatter if he touched her wrong. "I can manage, Mark," she said, but her voice wavered. That's when Grandma Evelyn showed up unannounced, taking one look at the situation and immediately taking charge. "Sarah, honey, why don't we set you up in the downstairs guest room?" Mom started to protest, but Grandma just raised her eyebrow in that way she has. And suddenly we were all moving furniture and bringing down Mom's things. Dad disappeared into his home office halfway through, claiming he had an important work call. "Your father's always been better at running than facing things head-on," Grandma said later as we folded Mom's clothes into the guest room dresser. "Even as a boy." I wanted to defend him, but I couldn't find the words. Instead, I held up one of Mom's favorite sweaters, the soft blue one she always wore to my school events. It hung loose from my hands like it was already empty. "Have you told Maya?" Grandma asked, watching me carefully. I shook my head. "Nobody knows. Well, except Mrs. Green, I think. She keeps finding excuses to check on me in the library. Sometimes the people who say the least understand the most." Grandma squeezed my shoulder. "Speaking of understanding, when was the last time you worked on those college applications?" "I can't think about that right now." "Yes, you can and you will." Her voice was gentle but firm. "Your mother would want." "Don't." I pulled away. "Please don't tell me what Mom would want." Later that evening, I found Dad in his office, staring at his computer screen without really seeing it. Empty coffee cups littered his desk, and his tie hung loose around his neck. "Dad." I waited for him to look at me. "The hospital called. They moved Mom's appointment to tomorrow morning." He rubbed his eyes. "I have a meeting I can't reschedule." "But you promised." "I know what I promised, Ella." His voice had an edge I'd never heard before. "But someone has to keep working to pay for all of this." I felt something snap inside me. "Right, because that's what matters right now." "Work." "Don't take that tone with me." "What tone should I take?" The words burst out before I could stop them. "The one where I pretend everything's fine? Where we all just watch Mom get worse while you hide in here with your precious meetings?" His chair scraped back as he stood. "That's enough." "You're right, it is enough." I turned to leave but paused at the door. "I'll take Mom to her appointment. At least one of us should be there." I slammed the door harder than necessary and nearly ran into Maya, who was just coming up the front walk as I stormed outside. "Whoa," she said, catching my arm. "Where's the fire?" I opened my mouth to give my usual everything's fine response, but what came out instead was a sob. Maya didn't say anything, just pulled me into a hug right there on the front porch. "It's my mom," I finally managed to say. "She's dying." Saying it out loud made it real in a way it hadn't been before. Maya held me tighter as I told her everything. The conversation I'd overheard, Dad's retreat into work, the way Mom tried to pretend she wasn't in pain. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" she asked when I finished. "Because then it would be true," I whispered. We sat on the porch steps until the sun started to set. Through the window, I could see Grandma helping Mom into bed, Dad's office door still firmly closed. The distance between us all seemed to grow wider with each passing day, like we were planets slowly drifting apart in our own separate orbits of grief. I didn't know it then, but this was just the beginning of how everything would fall apart. Mom died on a Tuesday. By Friday, Dad was already talking about moving forward and getting back to normal. 2 months later, he introduced us to Vivian. I was in the kitchen making tea when they walked in, Dad's hand resting on the small of her back like it used to rest on Mom's. The woman was tall, elegant, with perfectly styled blonde hair and a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Ella, this is Vivian," Dad said, his voice carrying a forced cheerfulness that made my stomach turn. We've been seeing each other at grief counseling. I nearly dropped the mug I was holding. Grief counseling. The sessions he'd started attending instead of visiting Mom in the hospital during her final weeks. It's so wonderful to finally meet you, Vivian said, stepping forward with outstretched arms. Your father talks about you constantly. I stepped back, avoiding the hug. Does he? That's news to me. Dad's face tightened. Yeah. I have homework, I said, grabbing my tea and heading for the stairs. As I left, I heard Vivian's soft voice. Give her time, Mark. This must be so hard for her. The way she said it made my skin crawl. Over the next few weeks, Vivian became a constant presence in our house. She rearranged the furniture, replaced Mom's old curtains with modern blinds, and slowly began moving her things into Dad's room. Into Mom's room. One afternoon, I came home to find her going through Mom's closet. Oh, Ella! She jumped slightly, holding one of Mom's sweaters. I was just organizing things. Your father thought it might be time to donate some of these. Did he? My voice came out flat. Funny, he hasn't mentioned anything to me about it. Well, you know how men are. She laughed lightly. They avoid these difficult conversations. But it's been 3 months, sweetie. We need to start fresh. Like she was already part of the family. I grabbed the sweater from her hands. These aren't yours to give away. Ella, she said, her tone shifting to something harder. I know this is difficult, but your father and I are trying to build something here. We need your support, not your teenage attitude. Before I could respond, Dad appeared in the doorway. Everything okay in here? Of course, darling, Vivian said, her voice honey-sweet again. Ella and I were just having a little chat about moving forward. That night, I called Grandma Evelyn in tears. She's going through Mom's things, I whispered into the phone, hiding in my bedroom. Dad's letting her change everything, like Mom was never even here. Oh, sweetheart. Grandma's voice was tight with anger. Have you talked to your father about how this makes you feel? He doesn't listen anymore. It's like, I swallowed hard. It's like he's becoming a different person around her. The next morning, I found Mom's jewelry box missing from her dresser. When I confronted Vivian, she blinked innocently. Mark gave those to me, she said. He thought I should have them since we're getting married. The world tilted sideways. What? Oh. She covered her mouth with perfectly manicured fingers. Was that supposed to be a surprise? I'm so sorry, I thought he'd told you. I ran to the bathroom and threw up, my hands shaking as I gripped the toilet bowl. Through the wall, I could hear Vivian's voice. Mark, she's upset. Maybe we should have waited to tell her. That afternoon, I sat in the school library, staring blankly at my archaeology textbook while Mrs. Green watched me with concern. Maya sat beside me, her hand on my arm. There's something off about her, I said. The way she acts when Dad's not around, the things she says. Document everything, Maya said firmly. Times, dates, what she does. If something's really wrong, you'll need proof. I nodded, pulling out my phone to start a notes file. As I typed, I remembered something Mom used to say about archaeology. Sometimes the truth lies in the smallest details, the things most people overlook. I glanced up to see Vivian's car pulling into the school parking lot. She wasn't supposed to pick me up today. Dad was. Something cold settled in my stomach as I watched her step out of the car, that perfect smile fixed on her face as she walked toward the building. The game was just beginning, and I had a feeling the rules were about to change. The first time Vivian hit me, I almost convinced myself it was an accident. We were in the kitchen, arguing about the box of Mom's old recipes I'd found in the trash. Her hand flew out, quick as a snake, catching my cheek. The shock hurt more than the slap. Oh, sweetie. Her eyes went wide with practiced concern. You shouldn't have gotten in my personal space like that. Look what you made me do. I touched my stinging cheek, watching her carefully. I'll tell Dad. She smiled, and something cold slithered down my spine. Tell him what? That you got aggressive while I was trying to clean? That you've been hostile since day one? She sighed dramatically. Poor Mark, he's so worried about your emotional state lately. I've been documenting everything like Maya suggested, but this was different. This was war. The next morning, Dad was already gone when I came down for breakfast. Vivian sat at the kitchen table, scrolling through her phone while sipping coffee from Mom's favorite mug. Your father's concerned about your grades, she said without looking up. He thinks maybe you should focus on something more practical than archaeology. I agree. My hands clenched around my backpack straps. Really? Because last week he said he was proud of my college applications. Things change. She finally looked at me, her eyes hard despite her sweet smile. Family dynamics change. You understand, don't you? School, I hid in the library during lunch, my hand shaking as I added to my notes file. Mrs. Green appeared with a cup of tea like she always did these days. Everything all right, Ella? She asked, her eyes lingering on my cheek where concealer covered the faint bruise. Fine, I said automatically, then hesitated. Actually, do you know anything about documenting abuse? Her expression shifted subtly. I might have some resources that could help. Hypothetically speaking, of course. That afternoon, Maya and I sat in her bedroom going through my phone's photo gallery. Pictures of Mom's missing things, screenshots of texts from Vivian, dates and times of accidents. This is seriously messed up, Maya said, scrolling through the evidence. Have you shown your dad? He wouldn't believe me. You should see how he looks at her like she's some kind of savior. I hugged my knees to my chest. Besides, she's already got him thinking I'm unstable. What about your grandmother? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed with a text from Vivian. Coming to pick you up. We need to talk about your attitude. My stomach lurched. I have to go. Wait. Maya grabbed my arm. Stay here tonight. My mom won't mind. If I don't go home, it'll just be worse later. Car ride was silent. When we got home, Dad's car was in the driveway, unexpected and terrifying. Inside, he sat at the kitchen table with papers spread out in front of him. Ella, he said, his voice tight. Care to explain these? My heart stopped. On the table were printouts of my college applications, the ones I'd secretly submitted to archaeology programs. I found them while organizing your room, Vivian said sweetly. I was so concerned about you going behind your father's back. You went through my room? I turned to Dad. She went through my things. Don't change the subject, he snapped. We agreed you'd apply to business schools. This is exactly the kind of reactive behavior Vivian's been telling me about. The betrayal felt like a physical blow. I looked between them, Dad's disappointed face, Vivian's perfectly crafted concern, and something inside me broke. Mom would have supported me, I said quietly. Dad flinched. Vivian's mask slipped for just a second, showing the anger underneath. Go to your room, Dad said. We'll discuss this when you're ready to be reasonable. I ran upstairs, locking my door before pulling out my phone. My hands trembled as I scrolled through my contacts, stopping at Grandma Evelyn's number. A new text from Maya popped up. Did you get home okay? Another from Mrs. Green. Those resources are in your locker whenever you need them. I took a deep breath and pressed call on Grandma's number. As it rang, I could hear Vivian's voice drifting up from downstairs, soft and reasonable, spinning her web around my father. Grandma! My voice cracked. I need help. Pregnancy announcement came during dinner, like a bomb dropped between the mashed potatoes and green beans. Dad beamed while Vivian touched her stomach with theatrical tenderness. I focused on my plate, pushing food around while they discussed nursery colors and baby names. You'll have a little brother or sister, Vivian said, reaching for my hand across the table. Won't that be wonderful? I pulled away, my fork clattering against my plate. I have to study. That night, I called Grandma Evelyn again. They're having a baby. Oh, sweetheart. Her voice was tight with concern. Are you safe there? I don't know anymore. The next few weeks were a blur of morning sickness, Vivian's, not mine, and Dad running around like an excited puppy. She played it perfectly, acting weak and vulnerable while shooting me knowing looks when he wasn't watching. Then came the stairs incident. I was heading down to the kitchen when I heard them arguing. Vivian's voice drifted up, trembling with tears. I just don't understand why she hates me so much, Mark. I'm trying so hard. I froze on the landing, listening. She's still grieving, Dad said. We all are. But the way she looks at me, the things she says when you're not around, I'm worried about the baby, Mark. This kind of stress isn't good for us. I started to turn back, but the stair creaked. They both looked up. Were you spying on us? Vivian's face transformed, tears vanishing. I was just. She rushed up the stairs, faster than any pregnant woman should move. As she passed me, her shoulder knocked into mine hard. I stumbled, catching myself on the railing. Ella, she screamed, grabbing her stomach. What are you doing? Dad appeared at the bottom of the stairs. What happened? She pushed me. Vivian was crying again, those instant tears. I was just trying to talk to her and she pushed me. I didn't, but Dad's face had already hardened. Go to your room, he said. Now. 3 days later, Vivian lost the baby. The doctors called it a miscarriage, but she had a different story. It was the stress, she told Dad while I listened from the hallway. The constant tension, the way she's been acting. I tried to protect our baby, Mark, but she just wouldn't stop. That night, I found all of Mom's remaining photos removed from the walls. When I confronted Dad, he exploded. Enough, he shouted. Vivian needs peace right now. She needs to heal. Why can't you understand that? Mom needed peace too, I shot back. She needed you, but you were too busy with work. And now you're too busy with her to see what she really is. His hand twitched, and for a second I thought he might hit me. Instead, he just looked disappointed. Somehow that was worse. You're grounded, he said quietly. No phone, no computer except for schoolwork. And you'll apologize to Vivian. I ran to my room, slamming the door. My phone buzzed one last time before Dad could confiscate it. A text from Maya. Mrs. Green found something. You need to see this. The next morning, I pretended to leave for school but doubled back through the kitchen door. I needed evidence, something concrete to show Dad what Vivian really was. I found her in Mom's old studio, going through a box of family photos. She looked up, unsurprised. I wondered when you'd try something like this, she said calmly. You're so predictable, Ella. Just like your mother was. My blood ran cold. What do you mean? She smiled, pulling out a photo I'd never seen before. Mom, years younger, standing with Vivian? Your mother and I have more history than you know, she said. And now I'm going to finish what I started back then. The photo slipped from my trembling fingers as everything suddenly clicked into place. This wasn't just about Dad or the baby. This was about Mom. And I was next. I ran all the way to school that morning, my lungs burning and the photograph crumpled in my pocket. Mrs. Green was waiting in the library with Maya, both of their faces grim. Show her, Maya said. Mrs. Green slid a yellowed newspaper clipping across the table. The headline made my stomach lurch. Local woman found dead after house fire. Husband's girlfriend primary suspect. That's Vivian, I whispered, staring at the grainy photo. Different name, but it's her. Charges were dropped, Mrs. Green said quietly. Insufficient evidence. The husband refused to testify. My hand shook as I pulled out the photograph from home. She knew my mom. Before everything. Maya grabbed my arm. Ella, your neck. I touched the spot where Vivian's nails had dug in during our confrontation, feeling the raised welts. It doesn't matter. We have to show this to Dad. We need to call the police, Mrs. Green insisted. They won't believe me. They'll just. The library door opened. Vivian stood there, perfectly composed in her designer outfit, Dad right behind her. There you are, she said sweetly. We've been so worried. Dad looked exhausted, his tie askew. Ella, come om. We need to talk about your behavior. Mark, Mrs. Green stepped forward. There's something you need to see. I know about the accusations, he cut her off. Vivian told me everything. How you've been encouraging Ella's paranoid behavior, feeding into her grief. My world tilted sideways. Dad, no. It's time to go, Vivian said, her hand closing around my arm. Her nails dug into the same spots as before, making me wince. Mrs. Green moved to intervene, but Dad blocked her path. This is a family matter. Mark, Mrs. Green tried again. Look at your daughter. Really look at her. But he was already steering me toward the door, Vivian's grip never loosening. Maya called after me, but her voice was drowned out by the ringing in my ears. Car ride home was silent. When we arrived, Vivian went straight upstairs while Dad led me to the kitchen. I found these in your room, he said, dropping a stack of papers on the table. My documentation, my photos, everything I'd collected. Vivian's right. This obsession isn't healthy. Dad, please. We're sending you to a treatment facility, he said. Just for a few weeks. To help you process your grief. The world stopped. What? It's already arranged. You leave tomorrow morning. You can't. I can, he snapped. I'm your father. This is for your own good. I ran upstairs, slamming my door and grabbing my phone to call Grandma Evelyn. No signal. The Wi-Fi was down too. Vivian appeared in my doorway. Looking for this? She held up the router cable. We thought it best to limit your access. Wouldn't want you spreading more lies. They're not lies, I said, my voice breaking. You knew Mom. That photo. Oh, that. She smiled. Sarah always was too trusting. Just like you. What did you do to her? Nothing she didn't bring on herself. Vivian stepped closer. Sometimes people just get sick, Ella. Sometimes accidents just happen. The implications hit me like a physical blow. You made her sick? Prove it, she whispered, then turned and walked away, leaving my door open. I could hear Dad downstairs making calls about the treatment facility. Through my window, I saw Mrs. Green's car pull up, then Grandma Evelyn's. Dad met them in the driveway, arguing. My phone was useless. My evidence was gone. Tomorrow I'd be locked away where no one would believe me. I looked at my bedroom window, then at the tree outside. 3 stories up, but the branches were strong. The Mom used to joke about how she'd caught me climbing it to sneak out when I was younger. Mom, who might not have died from natural causes after all. I grabbed my backpack and opened the window. Sometimes running away isn't cowardice, sometimes it's survival. Behind me, I heard Vivian's footsteps coming back up the stairs. It was now or never. Grandma Evelyn's attic became my darkroom, where I developed the photos from Mom's old camera I'd grabbed during my escape. Most were blank or ruined, but one stopped my heart. Vivian in our kitchen months before Mom got sick, barely visible in the background of a family dinner photo. Found something? Maya asked from the doorway. I handed her the photo. 3 weeks had passed since I'd climbed down that tree, since Grandma and Mrs. Green had helped me disappear. Dad's calls had gone from angry to pleading to silence. Look at what she's holding, I said, pointing to Vivian's hand. A small bottle, half hidden behind her back. Maya's eyes widened. Is that? I found more, I said, spreading out other photos on the table. Different names, different cities. Always the same pattern. She gets close to grieving men with teenage daughters. Then accidents happen. We have to show the police. Not yet. I pulled out my phone, showing her the text I'd received that morning. Missing your mother's things? come alone to the house at midnight. Tell anyone and they disappear forever. Ella no. She has Mom's journal. Her real jewelry, not the fake she claimed Dad gave her. I took a shaky breath. And maybe proof of what she did. Maya grabbed my arm. This is crazy. She's dangerous. So am I. That night, I slipped into my old house through the kitchen door, still broken from when Dad kicked it last summer. The house was dark except for Mom's studio upstairs. Vivian stood at Mom's old desk, looking through a leather-bound book. Mom's journal. I wondered if you'd come, she said without turning around. You're so like her. Same weakness for sentiment. Why did you do it? She laughed softly. Do you know what it's like, watching other women live the life you deserve? Sarah had everything. The devoted husband, the perfect daughter, the beautiful home. Her voice hardened. She didn't deserve it. So you poisoned her. Prove it. She finally turned. Oh, wait, you can't. The evidence is all gone, just like it was with the others. Your father won't believe you. No one will. That's where you're wrong. I pulled out my phone, recording light blinking. Say it again. Tell me how you killed my mother. Her face twisted. She lunged for the phone, but I was ready. We grappled, crashing into Mom's photography equipment. A flash went off, momentarily blinding us both. You stupid girl, she snarled, fingers clawing for my throat. I'll make it look like suicide. Just like I planned before you ran. The studio door burst open. Dad stood there, face ashen, his phone also recording. Behind him, Mrs. Green and 2 police officers. Mark! Vivian's voice instantly transformed, becoming soft and frightened. She attacked me. I heard everything, he said, his voice breaking. I heard what you did to Sarah. She lunged for the window, but the officers were faster. As they led her away, she locked eyes with me one last time. You're just like her, she spat. Weak. No, I said quietly. I'm the one who stopped you. Later, sitting on the porch with Dad, I finally asked the question that had been burning inside me. How did you know to come? Your grandmother, he said, looking older than I'd ever seen him. She showed me the photos you found. Made me really look at them. He turned to me, eyes wet. I'm so sorry, Ella. I should have seen it. Should have protected you both. I thought about Mom, about justice and revenge, about the fine line between them. We can't change what happened, I said finally. But we can choose what happens next. He nodded, understanding. Inside, I could hear Maya and Mrs. Green going through Mom's recovered belongings. Life wouldn't magically fix itself, but for the first time since Mom died, I felt like I could breathe again. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying your enemy, it's about refusing to let them destroy you. 6 months after Vivian's arrest, I stood in Mom's old studio, now converted into my darkroom. The acceptance letter from the University of Chicago's archaeology program lay on the desk beside a stack of photographs, evidence from Vivian's trial, pictures of Mom, memories both painful and precious. Ready? Dad asked from the doorway. I nodded, carefully packing the last of Mom's cameras. The house was sold, we were both moving on. Dad to a smaller place closer to his new therapy practice, me to Grandma Evelyn's until college started. Found this while packing, he said, holding out a worn book. It was your mother's. The journal. The one Vivian had been reading that night. My hands trembled as I opened it, a sealed envelope falling from between its pages. My name written in Mom's handwriting. I'll give you a minute, Dad said quietly, stepping out. I sat in Mom's old chair, unfolding the letter. My dearest Ella, if you're reading this, then my suspicions about Vivian were right. I'm so sorry I couldn't protect you from what was coming, but I knew you would be strong enough to face it. You always were the brave one. I recognized her the moment she started volunteering at the hospital, the woman who destroyed my college roommate's family years ago. By then it was too late. The doctors couldn't explain why I was getting sicker so quickly. But you, my brilliant girl, you figured it out. Just like you'll figure out your own path in life. Don't let anyone tell you archaeology is just digging up the past. It's about uncovering truth, preserving stories that need to be told. Your story needs to be told. All my love. Mom. Maya found me there later, still holding the letter. Mrs. Green's here, she said. The police want to talk to you about another case. Apparently, your evidence helped them reopen some old investigations. I thought about Vivian's words that night, just like the others. How many families had she destroyed? How many stories needed to be uncovered? In the kitchen, Mrs. Green was showing Dad a newspaper article about Vivian's previous victims. Their daughters want to meet you, she told me. When you're ready. I'd like that, I said, surprising myself. Later, standing in the driveway with the last boxes packed, I watched Dad struggling to lock the front door. Key stuck, it always had. Here, I said, showing him the trick Mom had taught me. You have to lift and turn at the same time. He smiled, a real smile that reached his eyes. When did you get so wise? I had good teachers. Grandma Evelyn pulled up in her car, Maya riding shotgun. They'd insisted on helping with the move, on being there for this final goodbye. You know, Dad said as we walked to our separate cars, your mother would be proud of you, not just for stopping Vivian, but for staying true to yourself. The archaeology program, the photography. I know, I said, thinking of Mom's letter. She always was. As we drove away, I watched our house disappear in the rearview mirror. Place where I'd learned about loss and betrayal, but also about strength and truth. Where I'd learned that sometimes the most important discoveries aren't artifacts buried in the ground, but the stories buried in plain sight. Maya turned around from the front seat. You okay? I touched the camera hanging around my neck, Mom's old one, the one that had helped expose Vivian's truth. Yeah, I said. I think I am. That evening, developing photos in Grandma's attic-turned-darkroom, I found one last shot from that final confrontation with Vivian. The accidental flash had captured something remarkable, her mask slipping, revealing the desperation beneath. A reminder that sometimes the most dangerous monsters are the ones who look most human. I pinned it to my wall alongside Mom's letter and my college acceptance. 3 pieces of a story that wasn't quite finished, because the best stories never really end, they just become part of who we are. Tomorrow I'd start packing for college. Tonight I had photos to develop, truth to uncover, and a mother's legacy to honor. After all, that's what archaeologists do. We piece together the past to understand our present and maybe, just maybe, to build a better future.
I never expected my peaceful Tuesday morning to turn into the beginning of a domestic nightmare. But there I was, standing in my kitchen doorway, staring at my mother-in-law Gloria, who had somehow materialized at my breakfast table like an unwanted apparition. My name is Sawyer, and until that moment, I'd been living what I considered a pretty well-balanced life. Working from home as an accountant, raising 2 great kids, and maintaining a happy marriage, all without the constant physical presence of my mother-in-law. Sure, she lived a comfortable 3-hour drive away, which meant manageable weekend visits every couple of months. Perfect distance, if you ask me. I sold my house, Gloria announced, stirring sugar into her self-served coffee. She'd clearly helped herself to my kitchen before I'd even come downstairs. The market was too good to pass up. I gripped my empty coffee mug tighter, trying to process her words. You sold your house. When did this happen? Oh, just finalized yesterday. She waved her hand dismissively, as if selling her home of 30 years was as casual as changing her nail polish. I thought, why not surprise everyone? The kids will be so excited to have their grandmother around more often. The word around made my stomach drop. Around? What exactly do you mean by that, Gloria? Well, I'll be staying here while I figure out my next move. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Ethan always said I was welcome anytime. Of course he did. My dear husband, always trying to please everyone, especially his mother. I made a mental note to have a serious conversation with him later. Does Ethan know about this? I managed to ask, keeping my voice steady. Not yet. He's already left for work, hasn't he? I thought we could surprise him when he gets home. Gloria took another sip of her coffee, grimacing slightly. Dear, you really should try that premium coffee brand I recommended. This tastes rather commercial. Before I could respond, thundering footsteps announced the arrival of my kids. Jack, my 10-year-old, skidded into the kitchen first, his superhero pajamas rumpled from sleep. 8-year-old Ella followed close behind, her eyes widening at the sight of her grandmother. "Grandma!" they shouted in unison, rushing to hug her. "My darlings!" Gloria cooed, embracing them. "How would you like having Grandma around more often?" I watched their excited faces and felt my chest tighten. This wasn't just about me anymore. Gloria had cleverly ensured her announcement would have an audience. My children's genuine joy would make it nearly impossible to object to her presence without looking like the villain. "Mom, can Grandma stay in my room?" Ella asked, bouncing on her toes. "Oh, sweetie, I brought my own things." "They're in my car," Gloria interjected before I could answer. "I thought the guest room would be perfect. It gets such lovely morning light." I stood there, coffee mug still empty, watching as Gloria masterfully took control of my household in less than 15 minutes. The guest room, my home office where I worked full-time, was apparently now her new bedroom. "Kids, you need to get ready for school," I said, finally finding my voice. "Go on up and get dressed. Don't forget to brush your teeth." As they rushed upstairs, Gloria began rummaging through my cabinets, pulling out pans. I thought I'd make the children a proper breakfast. Pop-Tarts aren't really suitable nutrition for growing minds, are they? I felt my jaw clench. "The kids like their routine, Gloria. And I need to talk to you about." "Oh, would you be a dear and help me bring in my luggage?" She cut me off, already cracking eggs into a bowl. I packed light, just 14 boxes and 3 suitcases. For now. For now. Those 2 words echoed in my head like a death knell. As I watched her move around my kitchen like she owned it, I realized this wasn't just a visit. This was an invasion, and Gloria had just appointed herself supreme commander of my household. My phone buzzed, a text from Ethan. "Running late tonight. Budget meeting. Love you." I stared at the message, then at Gloria humming as she scrambled eggs in my favorite pan. Something had to be done, and clearly, I would have to be the one to do it. Ethan didn't come home until after 9 that night. I'd spent the entire day watching Gloria systematically reorganize my kitchen, rearrange my living room furniture, and critique my parenting choices through carefully worded suggestions. By the time he walked through the door, I was ready to explode. "Mom!" Ethan stopped dead in his tracks, briefcase still in hand. "What are you doing here?" Gloria emerged from the kitchen, wearing the apron I'd received last Christmas. "Surprise! I made your favorite pot roast. Though I must say, Sawyer's oven runs a bit hot. We should really have that checked." I watched my husband's face cycle through confusion, joy, and finally, concern as he glanced my way. "This is unexpected. Why didn't you call first?" "Oh, you know me. I love surprises." Gloria bustled over to hug him. "And wait until you hear my wonderful news." While Gloria launched into her practice speech about selling her house, I retreated to our bedroom. 10 minutes later, Ethan found me sitting on our bed, staring at my laptop screen where my work documents were still open. "So," he started loosening his tie. "This is something." "Something." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Your mother has commandeered my home office, criticized every parenting decision I've made in the last decade, and informed the kids they'll be starting music lessons next week. But sure, let's call it something." Ethan sat beside me, his shoulder touching mine. "She means well." "Does she?" I turned to face him. Because earlier today, she told Jack that 10 is too old for superhero comics and that he should be reading classics instead. He was in tears. "Mom can be traditional," Ethan hedged. "Traditional?" I stood up, pacing the room. She replaced all my cleaning supplies with vinegar solutions because apparently I've been poisoning our children with modern products. And don't even get me started on the lecture about screen time when she caught Ella playing her educational math game. A soft knock interrupted us. "Ethan, the pot roast is getting cold, dear." I watched my husband's shoulders tense. "We'll be right there, Mom." "You know I can't work with her here," I said quietly. "My clients expect privacy during video calls. I can't conduct business with your mother hovering around, commenting on everything." "It's temporary," Ethan assured me, but he wouldn't meet my eyes. "Just until she figures out her next move." The next morning, I woke to the sound of pots clanging in the kitchen. Gloria had apparently decided 6 a.m. was the perfect time to start making a proper breakfast. I found her whisking eggs while simultaneously lecturing Jack about his posture. Grandmother knows best, she was saying. When your father was your age, he sat up straight as a pin. Now look at you, hunched over like a little gargoyle. Jack caught my eye, silently pleading for rescue. Before I could intervene, Gloria spotted me. Sawyer, dear, I've been meaning to talk to you about the children's schedules. All these after-school activities, soccer, art class, it's too much stimulation. In my experience as a teacher, children need structure, not chaos. Their schedules are fine, Gloria, I said, pouring coffee into my travel mug. They're happy and doing well in school. Well, if you say so. Her tone suggested otherwise, though I noticed Ella's multiplication tables could use work. I've already ordered some workbooks. I nearly dropped my mug. You what? Just a few supplementary materials. Nothing excessive. She turned back to the stove. Oh, and I took the liberty of signing them both up for piano lessons. The teacher's an old colleague of mine. We start next Tuesday. I felt something snap inside me. No, you didn't. I'm sorry. You don't get to make these decisions, Gloria. This isn't your household. The kitchen fell silent. Jack slipped away, leaving his half-eaten breakfast behind. Gloria slowly placed the whisk down, her back still turned to me. I'm only trying to help, dear. Someone needs to think about the children's future. The implication hung in the air like poison gas. I grabbed my keys, my hands shaking. I'm taking the kids to school, I announced. When I get back, we need to talk about boundaries. Gloria's reply followed me down the hallway. Of course, dear. Though in my experience, boundaries often limit a child's potential. Just look at how Ethan turned out under my guidance. I closed my eyes, counted to 10, and called the kids. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. After dropping the kids at school, I decided to work from my favorite coffee shop rather than return home to another round of Gloria's helpful suggestions. As I settled in with my laptop, a notification popped up from my bank. My heart nearly stopped when I saw the transaction details. Gloria had used Ethan's old credit card, the joint one he'd forgotten to cancel after getting a new one, to make several large purchases. Piano lessons weren't the only thing she'd been arranging behind our backs. My hands shook as I scrolled through the charges. Private tutoring services, educational software subscriptions, and most alarming of all, a 5-figure deposit on a condo. In our neighborhood, my phone buzzed. Gloria's text read, Dear, I noticed you left without properly clearing the breakfast dishes. I've rearranged your kitchen cabinets to a more logical system. Also, the children's new tutor starts tomorrow. I called Ethan immediately. Your mother just spent $12,000 of our money. What? His voice cracked. That's impossible. She doesn't have access to our accounts. Remember your old Capital One card? The one you kept as a backup? She must have found it in your desk. The silence on his end spoke volumes. There's more, I continued. She put a deposit down on a condo, 3 blocks from our house. Maybe this is good news? Ethan's voice was hesitant. If she has her own place. The deposit was made with our money, Ethan. Our money. When I finally returned home that afternoon, I found Gloria in my home office, surrounded by boxes of my work files. She'd cleared my desk completely, replacing my dual monitors with framed photos of herself with the kids. Oh good, you're back, she said, not looking up from her organizing. I hope you don't mind, but this room really wasn't being utilized properly. I've donated your old desk chair. Terrible for posture. The new one I ordered should arrive tomorrow. Gloria, I said, trying to keep my voice steady, we need to talk about the credit card charges. She waved dismissively. Ethan always said I should treat this as my home too. And really, the children need proper guidance. That tutor comes highly recommended. You had no right. I have every right, she cut in, her voice sharp. I sold my house to be closer to my family. Everything I'm doing is for this family's benefit. Unlike some people, I think about the future. What's that supposed to mean? Gloria finally looked up, her expression eerily calm. Well, dear, let's be honest. Working from home, letting the children play those violent video games, serving processed foods. These aren't exactly hallmarks of good parenting, are they? Before I could respond, my phone chimed with an email. It was from my biggest client, canceling our afternoon video call because they'd received a concerning email about my professional setup being compromised. Did you? I stared at Gloria. Did you contact my client? I merely suggested that conducting business calls from a family home might not be the most professional arrangement. She smiled. I'm sure they appreciated the heads up about privacy concerns. My vision blurred with anger. You had no right to interfere with my work. Oh, Sawyer, Gloria sighed, arranging another photo frame on my former desk. I know change is difficult, but you'll thank me later. Now, about the children's new schedule. Get out. The words came out barely above a whisper. Ibiyo pardon. Get out of my office. Now. Gloria's face hardened. I've raised a child. I've taught hundreds more. I think I know what's best. What's best? I laughed, a harsh sound that surprised even me. You want to know what's best? Not undermining my career. Not stealing our money. Not trying to take over my children's lives. I see Ethan was right about your tendency toward hysteria, Gloria said quietly. We'll discuss this later when you're more rational. Oh, and dear? The condo I put a deposit on? It's not just an investment. Consider it my permanent residence. We're going to be seeing a lot more of each other. She brushed past me, leaving behind the scent of her perfume and the crushing realization that this wasn't a temporary invasion. This was just the beginning of her takeover plan. My phone buzzed again, another client rescheduling. As I watched my professional life unravel in real time, I knew something had to give. And soon, Jack's scream echoed through the house, sending me running upstairs. I found him in his room, frantically pulling books from his shelves while Gloria stood by the doorway, arms crossed. My comics. His voice cracked as he turned to me, tears streaming down his face. They're gone. All of them. I took care of those inappropriate materials, Gloria announced, her tone suggesting she'd done us all a favor. A growing boy needs proper literature. I've replaced them with some classic novels, the kind your father read at his age. I stared at the pile of leather-bound books on Jack's desk, then at my son's devastated face. Those comics weren't just entertainment, they were his prized possessions. Some were rare editions Ethan and I had tracked down for his birthday, others were gifts from friends. They represented years of collecting. Where are they, Gloria? The garbage collectors came this morning. She smiled, pleased with herself. I must say, it feels wonderful to finally address this issue. Those violent pictures were rotting his brain. Jack slumped onto his bed, shoulders shaking. I sat beside him, pulling him close while my mind raced through possibilities. Thursday pickup meant the truck was probably still in the neighborhood. Get your shoes on, I told Jack. We're going comic hunting. Gloria stepped into the room. Now, Sawyer, don't undermine my authority. Jack needs to learn. Your authority? I stood up slowly. You have no authority here. None. I am his grandmother, who just threw away hundreds of dollars worth of his personal property without permission. I grabbed my keys. Jack's shoes. Now. We spent the next hour following the garbage truck's route, but it was too late. Jack's collection was gone, buried somewhere in the back of a compactor headed for the landfill. When we returned home, I found Ella hiding in the garden, her small hands covered in dirt. Grandma said I can't plant flowers anymore, she whispered. She says it's unladylike and I'll ruin my hands. Something snapped inside me. I marched into the house, finding Gloria rearranging my living room furniture again. We need to talk, I said. About Jack's improvement plan? I've already enrolled him in Latin classes. Much more suitable than those cartoon books. About you leaving. Gloria froze, then slowly turned to face me. I see what's happening here. You feel threatened because the children are finally getting proper guidance. Ethan warned me about your insecurities. Excuse me. He confided in me, dear. About your resistance to traditional values, your modern parenting notions. She adjusted a picture frame with deliberate precision. He agrees the children need more structure. My phone buzzed, a text from Ethan. Mom called. Maybe we should let the kids try some of her suggestions? Keep the peace. I felt the walls closing in. Gloria had somehow managed to turn my own husband against me, using his lifelong pattern of seeking her approval to manipulate the situation. The children are fine, I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. They were happy, well-adjusted, and thriving before you arrived. The only problem here is you. Well, Gloria's eyes narrowed. We'll see what Ethan thinks about that when he gets home. I've already invited the new tutor for dinner to discuss the children's deficiencies. She brushed past me, pausing at the doorway. Oh, and I took the liberty of canceling Ella's garden club. She'll be starting ballet instead. Much more appropriate for a young lady. I watched her disappear upstairs, probably to rearrange another room of my house. Through the window, I could see Jack sitting in the backyard, staring at the spot where he used to read his comics. Ella was still hiding among her flowers, likely wondering if they'd be the next things taken away. This wasn't just about me anymore. Gloria wasn't just trying to take over my home. She was systematically destroying everything that made my children unique, happy, and confident. And somehow, She'd managed to convince Ethan it was all for the best. I pulled out my phone and started searching. If Gloria wanted to play games, fine. But she wasn't the only one who could make plans. It was time to fight fire with fire, or in this case, something with 8 legs. I found Lila Torres's art studio tucked between a coffee shop and a vintage bookstore. The window display featured elaborate spider sculptures made from twisted metal and dark glass. Perfect. So let me get this straight, Lila said, twirling a purple-streaked lock of hair. You want me to transform your house into a spider-themed nightmare to drive out your mother-in-law? She has severe arachnophobia, I explained, watching Lila sketch quick designs. And she's destroying my family. Say no more. Lila's pencil moved faster. I've got an installation that'll make your place look like the set of Arachnophobia Meets Modern Art. When do we start? That evening, I convinced Gloria to attend her church group's potluck dinner. As soon as she left, Lila arrived with her team. We had 4 hours. Mom's really afraid of spiders? Jack asked, helping unpack boxes of decorations. Terrified, Ethan confirmed, surprising me with his enthusiasm. Remember when she found that tiny spider in her garden and refused to go outside for a week? Ella looked up from the box she was exploring. Is this mean? I paused, her question hitting harder than expected. Sometimes, I said carefully, we have to be a little mean to protect what matters. Lila's team worked efficiently. Subtle spider web patterns appeared on the walls, nearly invisible until they caught the light. Delicate metal sculptures hung from corners, casting spindly shadows. The piece de resistance was the guest room, my former office, where an enormous abstract spider sculpture dominated the ceiling, its legs stretching down the walls. It's beautiful, Lila declared, stepping back to admire her work. In a creepy, unsettling way. We finished just as Gloria's car pulled into the driveway. The kids retreated to their rooms, and Ethan and I positioned ourselves in the kitchen, trying to act natural. Gloria burst through the door, clutching her casserole dish. That potluck was dreadful. Nobody appreciated my traditional recipes. Now, about tomorrow's schedule. She stopped mid-sentence, staring at the wall where the light had caught one of the web patterns. What is that? What's what? I asked innocently. Gloria stepped closer, squinting. Her face paled as she noticed more webs, then the subtle sculptures in the corners. Are those spiders? Oh, those. Ethan's voice was casual. Just some new art we picked up. Very modern. Gloria's hands began to shake. Take them down. Right now. But they're part of our new decor, I said. The artist spent hours installing them. Besides, they're not real spiders. I don't care what they are. Gloria's voice rose. This is completely inappropriate. I won't stay in a house with these. These things. Well, I said slowly, you could always move into that condo you put a deposit on. The one you bought with our money. Gloria's eyes narrowed. Ethan, are you going to let her speak to me this way? Actually, Mom, Ethan stepped forward. We need to talk about those credit card charges. This is ridiculous, Gloria sputtered. I'm going to my room. We followed her upstairs, watching as she opened the guest room door and froze. The massive spider sculpture loomed above, its shadows dancing in the evening light. Gloria screamed. Take it all down, she demanded, backing away. This instant. No, I said quietly. This is our house, Gloria. Our rules. Our choices. If you don't like it, you know where the door is. You planned this, she whispered, realization dawning. You're trying to drive me out. Like you tried to drive out everything that makes my children happy? I countered. Their comics? Their gardens? Their choices. Gloria turned to Ethan, tears welling up. You're choosing her over your own mother? I'm choosing my family, he replied. All of it, including boundaries. Gloria's face hardened. Fine, if that's how you want to play this. She pulled out her phone. I still have that condo deposit. And when the children realize what a mistake this is, they'll know where to find their grandmother. As she stormed out, I caught a glimpse of something in her expression, not just anger, but fear. Fear of losing control, of being alone, of becoming irrelevant. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Then I remembered Jack's comics in the garbage, Ella's abandoned garden, and my determination hardened. Sometimes protecting your family means making difficult choices. And this was just the beginning. I thought Gloria's departure meant victory. I was wrong. The next morning, Child Protective Services showed up at our door. We received an anonymous report, the social worker said, flipping through her notes. Concerns about an unsafe home environment, psychological manipulation of minors, and... She paused, frowning. Disturbing decorative choices meant to inflict emotional distress? My stomach dropped as I invited her in. The spider installations, which had seemed like such a clever plan yesterday, now felt like evidence against us. I watched her take photos, noting every web pattern and shadow-casting sculpture. The children's grandmother provided extensive documentation, she continued, gesturing to a thick folder, including receipts for educational materials that were allegedly destroyed, records of canceled enrichment activities, and concerning text messages. Of course, Gloria had kept records. She'd been a teacher for 30 years. Documentation was second nature to her. My phone buzzed. Ethan, Mom's lawyer, called. She's suing for grandparents' rights and partial custody. Claims were unstable. The social worker interviewed Jack and Ella separately. Through the closed door, I heard Jack's voice crack as he described losing his comics. Ella talked about her garden, then burst into tears. Mrs. Bennett, the social worker said afterward, we have some concerns. This isn't what it looks like, I started, but she held up her hand. We have reports of you using psychological warfare against a family member, disrupting the children's educational progress, and creating an environment of hostility and fear. That's not. Your mother-in-law provided evidence of her attempts to enhance the children's education, while you appear to have deliberately triggered her documented medical condition to drive her away. A knock at the door interrupted us. Lila stood there, looking uncomfortable. Sorry, but I need to remove the installations. The invoice wasn't paid. I closed my eyes. Gloria had canceled the payment. Mrs. Bennett, the social worker continued, given the circumstances, we're recommending a temporary custody evaluation. The children will stay with their grandmother during this process. No, I whispered. You can't. Mom. Jack appeared in the doorway, his face pale. Grandma's here with police officers. I rushed to the front door. Gloria stood on our porch, flanked by 2 officers and a man in a suit I assumed was her lawyer. She'd traded her usual floral dress for a conservative business suit. This gives us temporary custody, the lawyer said, holding out papers. Given the documented psychological abuse and unsafe living conditions, the court agreed to an emergency order. Unsafe? I sputtered. You're the one who. Now, dear, Gloria cut in smoothly. Let's not make this more traumatic for the children than necessary. Jack, Ella, pack your overnight bags. Grandmother will help you get settled in the new condo. I watched, paralyzed, as my children were led away. Ella looked back once, tears streaming down her face. Jack wouldn't meet my eyes at all. This is what happens, Gloria murmured as she passed me, when you try to outsmart someone with decades of experience handling difficult situations. I taught middle school for 30 years, dear. Did you really think your little spider trick would work? After they left, I found Ethan sitting in Jack's room, holding one of his son's abandoned action figures. The lawyer says fighting this could take months, he said quietly. Mom's documented everything. Every conversation, every decision we made. She's painted us as unstable parents who used psychological torture against a vulnerable elderly woman. We were protecting our family, I said, but the words felt hollow. Were we? Ethan looked up, his eyes red. Because right now, our kids are sleeping in another house, probably terrified and confused. And the worst part? Legally speaking, we gave Gloria everything she needed to take them. I sank down beside him, the action figure between us like a tiny plastic accusation. The spider decorations that had seemed so clever now felt childish, petty. We'd tried to fight manipulation with manipulation, and Gloria had turned our own weapon against us. My phone buzzed one last time, a message from Gloria. The children are settled in nicely. Jack's new Latin tutor starts tomorrow. Isn't it wonderful how everything worked out for the best? I stared at the message until the screen went dark, reflecting my own defeated expression back at me. We'd lost more than a battle with Gloria. We'd lost our children. 3 days after losing our children, Gloria called to say Jack had fallen ill. When we arrived at her condo, we found our son perfectly healthy, sitting at a desk covered in Latin worksheets. A small miscommunication, Gloria said, not even pretending to look apologetic. But since you're here, we should discuss the children's future. The condo was a museum of forced perfection. Classical music played softly in the background. Ella sat ramrod straight at a small table, practicing cursive. No dirt under her fingernails, no joy in her eyes. Jack, I said, keeping my voice steady, why don't you show your dad your room? Once they left, I turned to Gloria. Enough games. What do you want? Want? Gloria adjusted a perfectly positioned flower arrangement. I want what's best for my grandchildren. Structure. Discipline. Proper education. You mean control. I mean salvation from your permissive parenting. She smiled thinly. Though I am willing to negotiate visitation rights. Negotiate? I stepped closer. These are our children, not bargaining chips. Children who are finally thriving under proper guidance. Gloria gestured to Ella's perfect handwriting. No more comic books or dirt digging. Real achievements. Something in Ella's posture caught my attention. Her shoulders trembled slightly, her pencil pressing too hard against the paper. She wasn't practicing cursive, she was drawing tiny flowers in the margins, then quickly erasing them. Ella, sweetie, I said softly, what happened to your garden? Grandmother says ladies don't play in dirt, she whispered, not looking up. And Jack's new Latin tutor? I asked Gloria. How's that going? Excellent. He's finally learning something worthwhile. From down the hall came the sound of breaking glass, followed by Jack's voice. I hate this. I hate all of this. We rushed to find Jack standing amid the shattered remains of a crystal vase, tears streaming down his face. I don't want to learn Latin. I don't want to be proper. I want to go home. Now, Jack, Gloria started, but Ethan cut her off. Stop. Just stop, Mom. His voice was different, harder than I'd ever heard it. Look at them. Really look at what you're doing to your grandchildren. I'm giving them opportunities. You're crushing them, I interrupted. Like you tried to crush Ethan. But here's what you never understood. Our kids were already thriving. Jack's comics taught him creativity and moral courage. Ella's garden showed her how to nurture life and find beauty in small things. Sentimental nonsense, Gloria scoffed, but her voice wavered. Is it? I pulled out my phone, showing her Jack's last report card. Top marks in creative writing. His teacher said his superhero stories showed exceptional empathy and understanding of complex moral choices. Ethan joined in, displaying photos on his phone. Ella's science project on plant growth won first place. Her dirt digging taught her more about biology than any textbook. But Gloria's perfectly composed facade cracked slightly. But structure, discipline. Mom, Ethan said quietly, when was the last time you saw them smile? Really smile. Gloria looked at her grandchildren, really looked at them for the first time. Jack, surrounded by broken crystal, his worksheet crumpled in his fist. Ella, her perfect posture crumbling as silent tears fell onto her cursive practice. I just wanted, she whispered, then stopped. Wanted what? I asked, gentler now. To not be alone? To feel needed? There are better ways, Gloria. We're taking our children home, Ethan said firmly. You can fight us in court, drag this out for months. Or you can realize that love isn't about control. Gloria sank into a chair, her carefully constructed world crumbling like the shattered vase. I don't know how to be any other way. Then learn, I said. Not by controlling, but by understanding. Start by really seeing who your grandchildren are, not who you want them to be. Jack moved first, picking up a piece of broken crystal. I'm sorry about the vase, grandmother. I'm sorry about your comics, she replied, her voice barely audible. It wasn't a complete surrender, not yet. But as we gathered our children's things, I saw Gloria watching them with new eyes, seeing perhaps for the first time the damage that comes from trying to reshape someone else's joy into your own image of perfection. A month after the confrontation at Gloria's condo, I found a package on our doorstep. Inside was a collection of vintage superhero comics, first editions, carefully preserved. The note read simply, for Jack. I was wrong. That evening, while the kids were doing homework, Gloria arrived for her first supervised visit. She stood awkwardly in our living room, clutching a gardening catalog. I thought, she said to Ella, we might look at some seeds for spring planting. If you're interested. Ella glanced at me before responding. I already started my tomatoes. But you could help with the peppers. The tension in the room softened slightly. Jack emerged from his room, one of the vintage comics in hand. This one's really good, grandmother. Want to hear about it? Gloria sat down, her usual perfect posture relaxing just a fraction. I would actually. I watched from the kitchen as Jack explained the complex moral dilemma facing his favorite hero. Gloria listened, really listened, asking questions that showed genuine interest rather than judgment. When Ella brought out her garden plans, Gloria didn't once mention dirty fingernails or unladylike behavior. Later, after the kids went to bed, Gloria lingered by the door. The condo sold, she said quietly. I'm moving to a smaller place. Still in town, but not so close. That's probably best, I replied. I found this while packing. She handed me a photograph. Ethan at 10 years old, reading a comic book, joy evident on his face. The last one I let him keep, before I decided he needed to grow up. I didn't understand then what I was taking away. I studied the photo, seeing echoes of Jack in young Ethan's expression. I was so afraid, Gloria continued, of becoming irrelevant, of being forgotten. I thought if I could shape them into my idea of success. She trailed off, shaking her head. You don't have to be perfect to be loved, Gloria. Neither do they. I'm learning that. Slowly. She straightened her jacket, a ghost of her old formality returning. I've enrolled in a gardening class. And a therapy group. For grandparents learning to let go. As she turned to leave, I remembered something. Wait here. I retrieved a small spider plant from my office. One of Ella's propagation projects. It's hardy, I said, holding it out. Thrives in most conditions. But it needs room to grow its own way. Gloria took the plant, understanding flickering across her face. Like children. Like all of us. After she left, I found Ethan in Jack's room, arranging the vintage comics on a new bookshelf. Mom called her lawyer, he said. She's dropping everything. No more custody battles, no more court dates. Good. I picked up one of the comics. Though I have to admit, I never expected vintage comics as a peace offering. She's trying, Ethan said softly. It's not perfect, but it's something. The next morning, I noticed new growth in Ella's garden. Tiny shoots breaking through the soil where she and Gloria had planted pepper seeds. Beside them stood a small sign in Gloria's precise handwriting. Growth takes time. Love takes patience. I thought about the spider decorations, still packed away in our garage. Our attempt at revenge had backfired spectacularly, yet somehow led us to a better resolution than I'd imagined possible. Not through forcing Gloria out, but by making her see what she was really losing. Jack's voice drifted from his room as he read his new comics. Ella hummed in her garden. From the kitchen came the sound of Ethan making breakfast. Normal sounds, ordinary moments. The very things Gloria had tried to perfect right out of existence. My phone buzzed with a text from Gloria. The spider plant looks lovely in my window, though I prefer to think of it as a friendship plant now. I smiled, typing back. Growth takes time. Love takes patience. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. Sometimes it's showing someone a better way to love, messy, imperfect, and real. Like superhero comics and dirt under fingernails, like spider plants reaching for light in their own unique way. And sometimes, just sometimes, it's about learning to let go of the need for revenge altogether.
The call came at 3:47 a.m. I remember staring at my phone screen, wondering who would call at such an hour. The hospital's number flashed, sending a chill down my spine before I even answered. My name is Avery, and that call changed everything. Miss Callahan? This is Mercy General Hospital. We need you to come in immediately. Your parents have been in an accident. The drive to the hospital exists in my memory as fragments, red lights bleeding into darkness, windshield wipers fighting against unexpected rain. My hands shaking on the steering wheel. I kept telling myself they were fine, probably just some broken bones or a concussion. Parents don't just die on random Tuesday nights. Except sometimes they do. The impact was instantaneous, the doctor explained, his voice gentle but clinical. They wouldn't have suffered. I stood there in the fluorescent-lit hallway, still wearing my pajama pants and my father's old college sweatshirt, trying to process words that refused to make sense. A drunk driver had crossed the median. My parents' car had flipped 3 times. There was nothing anyone could have done. Would you like to see them? The doctor asked. I shook my head. I couldn't bear the thought of seeing them like that. I wanted to remember them as they were at Sunday dinner just 2 days ago, Mom laughing at Dad's terrible puns, Dad pretending to be offended when I sided with Mom about his new mustache looking ridiculous. A nurse handed me a plastic bag containing their personal effects. Mom's purse, Dad's wallet, their phones, and wedding rings. Such small things to represent entire lives. There's someone who'd like to speak with you, the nurse said, gesturing toward a man in an expensive-looking suit who'd been hovering nearby. He witnessed the accident and stayed to give a statement to the police. The man approached, his expression grave but kind. I'm Marcus Bennett, he said, extending his hand. I'm so sorry for your loss. I tried to help, but he trailed off, and I noticed his suit was stained with what looked like blood. I should have thanked him for trying to help, for staying, for caring enough to want to speak with me. Instead, I threw up in a nearby trash can. Marcus didn't flinch. He just produced a handkerchief from his pocket and offered it to me when I straightened up. "Let me call someone for you," he said. "Family? Friends?" I wiped my mouth, shame mixing with grief. "There's no one to call. My parents were it." The words hit me like a physical blow. "They were it," I repeated, my voice breaking. Lucy, my best friend, would kill me for not calling her, but I couldn't bear the thought of anyone else's grief right now. I needed to hold myself together, and seeing Lucy break down would shatter what little control I had left. "Then let me at least drive you home," Marcus offered. "You shouldn't be alone right now, and you're in no condition to drive." I wanted to refuse, to maintain some semblance of independence in a moment when everything felt like it was slipping away. But the thought of getting back in my car, of driving through the same streets where my parents had just... I couldn't do it. "Okay," I whispered, clutching the bag of their belongings to my chest. As we walked toward the hospital exit, I caught my reflection in a window, pale, hollow-eyed, lost. Behind me, Marcus's reflection watched me with an intensity one was too numb to question. I didn't know then that this night would set in motion events that would test every belief I had about love, family, and justice. I didn't know that Marcus Bennett would become both my salvation and my nightmare. I just knew that in that moment, I was 28 years old and suddenly, catastrophically alone. Or at least, that's what I thought. The first week after my parents' death passed in a blur of paperwork and phone calls. I sat at their kitchen table, surrounded by manila folders and sympathy casseroles, trying to make sense of insurance forms and funeral arrangements. That's when Marcus showed up again, carrying coffee and a leather briefcase. "I hope you don't mind," he said, setting a cup in front of me. "I remembered you take it with vanilla from the hospital cafeteria." I hadn't remembered telling him that. But grief does strange things to memory. "I'm a financial advisor," he explained, pulling out a chair. "I thought you might need help sorting through all this." Before I could respond, Lucy burst through the front door. She'd been checking on me daily, bringing food I couldn't eat and concern I couldn't handle. "Avery, why aren't you answering your..." She stopped short, eyeing Marcus. "Who's this?" I made introductions, watching Lucy's face shift from surprise to suspicion. Marcus stood, extending his hand with a warm smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "I was just offering to help Avery with the estate paperwork," he said. "It can be overwhelming, especially with life insurance claims." Lucy's eyebrows shot up. "And you just happened to stop by?" "Actually, I witnessed the accident," Marcus replied smoothly. "I've been concerned about Avery's well-being." The tension in the room thickened. Lucy crossed her arms, positioning herself between Marcus and me like a shield. "That's very thoughtful," she said, her tone suggesting it was anything but. "But Avery has people to help her." "Right, Av." I should have agreed with Lucy. Should have noticed how Marcus's jaw tightened at her words, how his fingers drummed once, sharply, against his briefcase. Instead, I heard myself say, "Actually, Lucy, I could use some professional help with this." Lucy's face fell. "Avery, it's just paperwork," I said quickly. "And Marcus knows what he's doing." "Of course he does," Lucy muttered, then louder. "Fine. But I'm staying." Marcus smiled again, all charm. The more the merrier. For the next few hours, Marcus guided me through the maze of documents with practiced ease. He knew exactly which forms needed attention first, which companies to call, what questions to ask. Lucy watched from the couch, her presence both comforting and somehow irritating. "Your parents had excellent life insurance," Marcus noted, reviewing a policy. "But there might be some issues with the payout timing. I could expedite that through my firm." "That would be..." I swallowed hard, remembering Mom's insistence on maintaining those policies. "That would be helpful." "Avery," Lucy interrupted, "can we talk?" "Privately?" In the kitchen, Lucy gripped my arms. "Something's off about him. Why is he really here?" "He's helping, Lucy. He's inserting himself into your life when you're vulnerable. Don't you think it's convenient that he just happens to be a financial advisor?" I pulled away. Not everything is a conspiracy. Sometimes people are just kind. And sometimes they're not, Lucy shot back. "Have you even Googled him?" Checked if he really works where he says he does. I hadn't, and Lucy's question made me feel foolish. But before I could respond, Marcus appeared in the doorway. "Everything okay?" he asked, his concern seeming genuine. "I found something interesting in your father's investment portfolio. You might want to take a look." Lucy threw up her hands. "I need to get to work. Call me later, okay?" After she left, Marcus sat closer than before, his shoulder occasionally brushing mine as he explained various financial terms. The house felt different with just us there, quieter, more intimate. "You know," he said softly, "I lost my parents young too. Car accident, actually. That's why I stayed that night at the hospital. I couldn't bear the thought of anyone going through that alone." Something in his voice made me look up. Our eyes met, and for a moment I saw past his polished exterior to something raw and familiar, grief recognizing grief. "Thank you," I whispered, meaning it. Later, alone in bed, I checked my phone to find missed calls from Lucy and a text from Marcus. "Let me know if you need anything." Anytime. I should have heard the possessiveness in those words. Should have noticed how quickly he was becoming necessary. Instead, I saved his number and fell asleep clutching my phone, feeling less alone than I had in days. 3 months after my parents' death, Marcus proposed. We were in his penthouse apartment, the city lights twinkling below like fallen stars. It should have felt magical. Instead, I felt dizzy, unmoored. "It's too soon," I said, staring at the diamond ring that probably cost more than my parents' house. "Is it?" Marcus moved behind me, his hands on my shoulders. "You're drowning in that empty house, Avery. Let me take care of you." I closed my eyes, remembering Mom's voice. "Never let a man rush you into anything, sweetheart." But Mom was gone. And Marcus had been right about everything so far. The insurance money had come through faster with his help. The estate was settled. He'd even found a buyer for my parents' house who'd let me take my time moving out. "I need to think," I said. His fingers tightened slightly on my shoulders. "Of course. Take all the time you need." I called Lucy the next morning. She was already waiting at our usual coffee shop when I arrived. "He what?" Lucy nearly knocked over her latte. "After 3 months? I know it seems fast, but..." "Fast? It's insane." Lucy leaned forward. "What do you even know about him?" "He's successful, kind, stable. Those are resume points, not reasons to marry someone." Lucy pulled out her phone. "Look at this." I did some digging. His first wife left him after 8 months. No explanation, just disappeared to another state. Changed her name. My stomach churned. People have complicated pasts. People have patterns. Lucy's voice softened. "You're grieving, AV. You're vulnerable. And he knows it." I left the coffee shop angry, at Lucy for doubting Marcus, at myself for letting her words plant seeds of doubt. When I got home, Marcus was waiting on my porch. "I thought you had meetings today," I said, fumbling with my keys. "Cancelled them. You're more important." He followed me inside. "Have you thought about my proposal?" I turned to face him, ready to say I needed more time. But something in his expression made me pause. For just a moment, his carefully maintained facade cracked, revealing something desperate underneath. "Yes," I heard myself say. "Yes, I'll marry you." His smile was brilliant, triumphant. "I'll take care of everything. We'll have the wedding next month, before winter sets in." "Next month?" My head spun. "That's 2. Perfect timing," he interrupted smoothly. "And you should move in right away. No sense paying to heat this big house alone." Within days, my life became a whirlwind of wedding plans and moving boxes. Marcus handled everything: the venue, the caterers, even my dress. "You have enough to worry about," he'd say, kissing my forehead whenever I tried to object. The night before the wedding, Lucy showed up at Marcus's penthouse where I was already half moved in. "Don't do this," she pleaded. "Something's wrong." "I can feel it." "You don't know him like I do," I said, but my voice wavered. "Neither do you." Lucy grabbed my hands. "Remember when we were kids, and you always knew when someone was lying? What does your gut tell you about Marcus?" Before I could answer, the front door opened. Marcus stood there, his expression pleasant, but his eyes cold. "Lucy," he said. "It's late." Avery needs her rest before tomorrow. I was just leaving. Lucy hugged me fiercely, whispering, "Call me if you need anything." Anytime. After she left, Marcus pulled me close. I know she means well, but Lucy needs to understand that things are different now. We're going to be a family. Family. The word echoed in my chest, filling the hollow space my parents' death had left. But as Marcus led me to bed, I caught our reflection in the window. He looked solid, certain. I looked like a ghost, fading at the edges. That night, I dreamed of my mother. She was trying to tell me something important, but her voice was drowned out by the sound of screeching tires and breaking glass. I woke up gasping, reaching for my phone to call Lucy. Marcus stirred beside me. "Everything okay, sweetheart?" I put the phone down. Just wedding jitters. He pulled me closer, his arm heavy across my waist. "Don't worry. After tomorrow, everything will be perfect." I lay awake until dawn, wondering why perfect suddenly sounded so much like prison. The pregnancy test showed positive 2 months after the wedding. I stared at it in our marble bathroom, my hands shaking. This should have been a moment of pure joy, but my first instinct was to hide it from Marcus. I didn't understand why until that evening, watching him review our monthly expenses on his laptop. "You spent $400 at that boutique?" He didn't look up. "We talked about discretionary spending, Avery." "It was for work clothes," I said, touching my still flat stomach. "My others don't fit right anymore." Now he looked up, his eyes sharp. "Are you?" I nodded, forcing a smile. His reaction was everything it should have been: joy, excitement, immediate calls to his family. But something felt off, like watching a perfect performance where you can see the strings. The next morning, I found my credit cards cut up on the kitchen counter. "It's for the best," Marcus explained, sliding a new card across the granite. "Joint account only. We need to be more careful now that we're having a baby." I picked up the new card. My name was missing from it, just Marcus Bennett in raised letters. "I can't access my personal account anymore?" "Why would you need to?" His tone was gentle, reasonable. "I make more than enough for both of us. 3 of us now." The pregnancy progressed, and with it, Marcus's control tightened like a slowly turning screw. He hired a recommended doctor without consulting me, installed security cameras in every room of our home, started tracking my phone's location in case of emergency. I tried calling Lucy, but my calls kept going to voicemail. Finally, I got a text, number no longer in service. When I asked Marcus about it, he shrugged. "She probably changed carriers." You know how Lucy is, always changing her mind about things. Ethan was born on a stormy Tuesday. Marcus wasn't there. He had an unmissable meeting in Chicago. The nurse asked if I wanted to call someone else, and I realized I had no one left to call. Looking at my son's tiny face, something broke and reformed inside me. This perfect, innocent being depended on me completely, just like I now depended on Marcus. The thought hit me like ice water. When Marcus returned 3 days later, he had papers for me to sign. "Just some adjustments to our life insurance and investments," he said, bouncing Ethan with practiced efficiency, making sure everything's properly protected. I scanned the documents, my postpartum fog lifting enough to catch phrases like full financial control and medical proxy. "I should have my lawyer look at these," I said. Marcus's bounce hitched for just a second. "Don't you trust me, sweetheart? After everything I've done for us." Ethan started crying, a sharp, desperate sound. Marcus handed him back to me with barely concealed irritation. "He's always crying," he said later that night, after I'd spent hours trying to soothe our colicky son. "Maybe we should hire a night nurse. Give you a break." "I don't want a break," I said, holding Ethan closer. "I want to be with my son." "Our son," Marcus corrected, his smile not reaching his eyes. "And I want what's best for both of you. You're clearly overwhelmed." I waited until he fell asleep before slipping into his home office. The papers were still there, along with others, bank statements showing massive transfers, documents about my parents' estate I'd never seen, and a folder labeled Jennifer Bennett, his first wife. Inside was a restraining order, police reports, hospital records, My hands trembled as I took photos with my phone, knowing I had minutes at most before Marcus's security system alerted him to movement in the office. Back in bed, Ethan sleeping against my chest, I felt Marcus stir beside me. "Everything okay?" he murmured. "Perfect," I lied, my heart pounding. "Just feeding the baby." He pulled me closer, his arm heavy across both me and Ethan. Possessive. Constraining. I lay awake until dawn, planning my escape, knowing I had to be smarter than Jennifer. Had to protect Ethan at all costs. But first, I needed to find Lucy. The breaking point came on Ethan's first birthday. Marcus had insisted on a lavish party, caterers, photographers, 50 guests I barely knew. I stood in our kitchen, watching him direct the staff like a general commanding troops, while Ethan cried in his high chair. "He needs his nap, Marcus," I said, reaching for our son. "He needs to learn to socialize properly." Marcus intercepted my movement, his fingers wrapping around my wrist. The Hendersons brought their board chairman. Appearances matter. I pulled away, the motion causing a stack of invitations to scatter across the floor. As I bent to pick them up, a familiar name caught my eye: Thompson. Lucy's parents were invited. Why are Tom and Sarah Thompson on the guest list? My voice shook. "You said Lucy moved away." Marcus's expression didn't change, but something cold flickered in his eyes. Did I? Must have been a misunderstanding. Like the misunderstanding about Jennifer? The words slipped out before I could stop them. The kitchen staff suddenly found urgent reasons to be elsewhere. "What did you say?" Marcus's voice was deadly quiet. "I found the restraining order," I said, my heart hammering. "The police reports." "What did you do to her, Marcus?" He laughed, a sound that made Ethan whimper. "You've been snooping in my office? That's disappointing, Avery. Very disappointing. Where's Lucy? What did you tell her to make her stay away?" "You should focus on our guests," he said, reaching for Ethan. "I'll take him upstairs." I stepped between them. "Don't touch him. He's my son." "Is he?" "Because the paperwork I found shows you changed his birth certificate. Removed my name as mother." Marcus's mask slipped completely. "You really shouldn't have gone through those files." "Or what? You'll make me disappear like Jennifer." The slap came fast, but I was expecting it. What I wasn't expecting was the phone that clattered from his jacket pocket, my old phone, the one he'd said was accidentally destroyed months ago. We both stared at it. "Quite a collection of texts from Lucy on there," I said, my cheek burning. "Warnings about you. Offers to help me leave. Funny how I never got them." Marcus moved with frightening speed, but I was faster. I grabbed Ethan and backed toward the door. "Think carefully about what you're doing," he said. "You have no money, no family, nowhere to go." I made sure of that. "You made one mistake," I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. "You let me find those documents about Jennifer. About what you really did with my parents' estate." His face went white. "You don't understand." "I understand enough." I held Ethan tighter. "And so will the police when they see what I sent to my lawyer last week." "You're bluffing. You don't have a lawyer." "Jennifer's lawyer," I corrected. She was very interested in the pattern. The doorbell rang, the first guests arriving. Marcus's carefully constructed facade snapped back into place. "We'll discuss this later," he said, straightening his tie. "Don't make a scene." "No," I said, "we won't." I walked out the front door, past the arriving guests, ignoring their startled looks and Marcus's smooth excuses about my emotional state. I kept walking until I reached the park 3 blocks away, where a familiar figure sat on a bench. "Took you long enough," Lucy said, standing up. "I've been waiting here every day for weeks, hoping you'd figure it out. You never left." "Of course not." She hugged me carefully, mindful of Ethan. "But he had to think I did. Had to think you were completely isolated." "We need to go," I said, looking back toward the house. "He'll come after us." "Let him try." Lucy led me to her car. "Your grandmother Eleanor is waiting. Turns out she's been looking for you since your parents died." Marcus intercepted those calls too. As we drove away, I saw Marcus running down the street in his expensive suit, his mask completely gone. In the rearview mirror, he looked smaller, less powerful. "He'll never stop," I said. "No," Lucy agreed. But neither will we. Ethan fell asleep in my arms, peaceful for the first time in months. I held him close, knowing the fight ahead would be brutal, but feeling stronger than I had since that first hospital call. Sometimes you have to lose everything to find what you're really made of. Eleanor's Victorian mansion loomed against the stormy sky like something from a Gothic novel. Lucy pulled into the gravel driveway, and I felt a strange mix of fear and hope. This was my father's childhood home, the place he'd refused to discuss. "She's been waiting for you," Lucy said, killing the engine. Before we reached the porch, the front door swung open. Eleanor Callahan stood there, tall and elegant despite her age, her silver hair pulled back in a severe bun. "So," she said, eyeing me critically, "you finally figured it out." The first few days at Eleanor's were a blur of lawyers, police reports, and sleepless nights. Marcus's threats came hourly, texts, emails, calls from blocked numbers, each one more desperate than the last. "He's filed for emergency custody," my lawyer said over speakerphone. "Claims you're mentally unstable, a danger to Ethan." Eleanor snorted from her armchair. Of course he did. Men like that always play the same cards. "He's frozen all the accounts," I said. "Even the trust fund for my parents." "That's illegal," Lucy interjected. "The estate money was transferred months ago," I finished. "He had me sign everything over while I was still in the hospital after Ethan's birth." The lawyer's sigh crackled through the speaker. "We'll fight it, but these cases take time. And money." That night, I found Eleanor in her study, surrounded by old photographs. "Your father was wrong about me," she said without looking up. "Just like he was wrong about your mother's accident." My heart stopped. "What?" "Marcus isn't the first man to arrange convenient accidents." She handed me a yellowed newspaper clipping. "Your grandfather was very good at making things look unintentional." I scanned the article. A car crash from 30 years ago. My grandmother's sister, dead after her brakes mysteriously failed. "Dad thought you abandoned them," I whispered. "I was protecting them. Just like you're protecting Ethan now." Eleanor's eyes were sharp. "But protection isn't enough. Sometimes you have to fight back." A crash from upstairs cut through the tension. Lucy's scream followed. "Avery!" I ran up the stairs 2 at a time. Ethan's room was empty, the window open to the storm. On his bed lay his favorite stuffed bear, its head torn off. "The cameras caught him," Lucy said, tablet in hand. "Marcus." He was gone before the alarm triggered. My legs gave out. Eleanor caught me before I hit the floor. "He's showing you what he can do," she said. "What he'll take if you don't go back." My phone buzzed, a video message from Marcus. Ethan's bear wasn't the only thing he'd taken. The screen showed papers scattered across his desk, medical records, school reports, photos of me at college parties. "Come home," his voice purred, "or everyone sees who you really are." Including the judge. "How do you think they'll view a mother with your history?" "He's bluffing," Lucy said, but her voice shook. "No," I replied, "he's winning." Eleanor's hand gripped my shoulder. "Only if you let him." "I have nothing left." The words tore from my throat. No money, no proof, no power. "He's taken everything." "Not everything." Eleanor moved to an old painting on the wall, swung it aside to reveal a safe. "Your grandfather taught me one thing: always keep evidence." She pulled out a thick folder. Inside were documents, photos, bank statements, 30 years of carefully gathered proof of financial fraud and worse. "Marcus isn't just fighting you," she said. "He's fighting a ghost who taught me everything about men like him. And ghosts don't play fair." My phone buzzed again. "Marcus, you have 1 hour to decide. After that, everything burns." I looked at the folder in my hands, at Lucy's determined face, at Eleanor's knowing smile. Something cold and certain settled in my chest. "Tell him I'm coming home," I said, reaching for my coat. "But first, we need to make a stop." "Where?" Lucy asked. "To see Jennifer Bennett. It's time to compare notes." The storm outside grew stronger, but for the first time since leaving Marcus, I felt steady. Sometimes rock bottom isn't an ending. Sometimes it's just the foundation you need to build something stronger. Jennifer Bennett lived in a small apartment above a bookstore 2 states away. Her hair was different, her name was changed, but her eyes held the same haunted look I saw in my mirror every morning. "I wondered when you'd find me," she said, letting us in. We spread Eleanor's documents across Jennifer's kitchen table, 3 decades of carefully documented fraud, abuse, and manipulation. Jennifer added her own files, and slowly, a pattern emerged. "The accident that killed your parents," Jennifer said quietly. "It wasn't the first one Marcus arranged." My phone buzzed. "Marcus, 20 minutes left, sweetheart. Clock's ticking." I texted back, "Coming home. Meet me at the house." Lucy grabbed my arm. "You can't go back there. Watch me." I turned to Jennifer. "Are you ready?" She nodded, her hands shaking but her voice steady. "Been ready for 3 years." The drive back felt like moving through a dream. Eleanor's evidence was already with the FBI. Jennifer's testimony was recorded and safe. Everything was in place. Marcus was waiting in our living room, Ethan's torn bear on the coffee table between us. "I knew you'd make the right choice," he said, reaching for me. I stepped back. "Where's Ethan?" "Safe. With my sister." His smile turned cold. "Where he'll stay until you prove you can be trusted." "Like Jennifer proved herself?" I watched his face change. "Or like my parents proved themselves?" "Careful, Avery." He moved toward me, but I held my ground. "You're emotional." "Not thinking clearly." "Actually, I'm thinking clearly for the first time since that night at the hospital." I pulled out my phone, showed him the screen. "Remember this night, Marcus?" The security footage played silently, Marcus arguing with my father outside their house, following their car, making a call moments before the crash. "Where did you get that?" His mask slipped completely. Eleanor had cameras installed after her sister died the same way. Funny how history repeats itself. "You can't prove anything." "No." I nodded toward the window. Red and blue lights flashed outside. "Jennifer's testimony might help. And the FBI seems very interested in those offshore accounts you set up with my parents' money." Marcus lunged for me, but Lucy appeared in the doorway, Jennifer behind her. His eyes darted between us, calculating. "Everything I did was for us," he said. "To protect our family." "No." My voice was ice. "Everything you did was for control. But you made one mistake." "What's that?" "You thought I was weak. Like Jennifer. Like my mother." I stepped closer. "But I'm not them. I'm Eleanor's granddaughter. And she taught me how to fight back." The FBI agents burst in before Marcus could respond. As they read him his rights, he kept his eyes locked on mine. "You'll regret this," he hissed. "You're nothing without me." I picked up Ethan's bear, carefully reattaching its head. "No, Marcus. I was nothing with you. That was the point." Later, at Eleanor's house, I held Ethan close, watching him sleep. Lucy brought coffee, Jennifer brought blankets, and Eleanor brought perspective. "Your father never knew the truth about his mother," she said, showing me an old letter. "Your grandfather convinced him I abandoned them. By the time I gathered enough evidence to fight back, it was too late. The damage was done. But not this time," I said. "No." Eleanor smiled. "Not this time." My phone buzzed one last time, Marcus's lawyer, offering a deal. Delete the evidence, recant the testimony, and he'd give me full custody of Ethan. I showed the message to Jennifer. She took my phone and typed 2 words, "Not interested." Outside, the storm finally broke. Through the window, I could see stars emerging, bright and clear against the dark sky. Ethan stirred in my arms, safe and whole. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying your enemy. Sometimes it's about rebuilding everything they tried to break, stronger, better, and far beyond their reach. Marcus had taught me about power, but Eleanor, Lucy, and Jennifer had taught me about strength. And in the end, that made all the difference. 1 year later, I stood in Eleanor's attic, surrounded by antique furniture waiting to be restored. Sunlight streamed through the dormer windows, catching dust motes and memories alike. My workshop had become my sanctuary, each piece of furniture a story waiting to be renewed. The news about Marcus came during breakfast. Lucy burst in, waving her phone. "Guilty on all counts," she announced. 15 years minimum. Eleanor looked up from feeding Ethan his oatmeal. "Good. Though prison's too comfortable for men like him." I kept sanding the Victorian desk I was restoring, letting the rhythmic motion calm my racing heart. Did he say anything? Tried to blame everyone else. The judge wasn't buying it. Lucy sat beside Ethan, wiping oatmeal from his chin. Jennifer sends her thanks, by the way. She's finally using her real name again. The doorbell rang, another customer for our growing restoration business. Eleanor's attic treasures had become the foundation of something unexpected: independence. Mrs. Peterson's here about her grandmother's cabinet. Eleanor called up the stairs. Coming. I set down my sandpaper, studying my work. The desk had arrived badly damaged, its surface scarred and watermarked. Now the original would gleam through, waiting for its final polish. As I descended the stairs, I caught sight of myself in the hallway mirror. I looked different, stronger, steadier. My father's eyes looked back at me, and for the first time, I understood him better. Sometimes the hardest patterns to break are the ones we inherit. The afternoon brought another visitor, Marcus's sister, Catherine. She stood awkwardly on the porch, clutching a familiar teddy bear. Found this while cleaning out his place, she said. Thought Ethan might want it back. I took the bear, now professionally repaired. Thank you. I'm sorry, she whispered. I should have seen what he was doing. Should have stopped him. We all should have seen something, I replied. The question is what we do after we finally open our eyes. Later, as sunset painted Eleanor's garden in gold, we gathered for our weekly family dinner. Lucy brought wine, Jennifer drove down from her new home 2 towns over, and Eleanor presided over it all like a benevolent queen. To justice, Lucy proposed, raising her glass. To survival, Jennifer added. To family, Eleanor corrected, watching Ethan play with his restored bear. The kind we choose, not the kind that chains us. I touched the letter in my pocket, the one that had explained everything about Eleanor and my father. Their estrangement had been built on lies, just like Marcus's power over me. But unlike my father, I'd gotten the chance to learn the truth in time. I have news, I announced. The restoration business is expanding. We've been asked to handle the renovation of the Historical Society's entire collection. That's wonderful, Lucy exclaimed, but Eleanor's eyes narrowed. And, she prompted, and I've decided to go back to school. Part-time for now. Art conservation and restoration. Eleanor smiled, satisfaction gleaming in her eyes. Good. About time you started building something for yourself. Speaking of building, Jennifer added, my support group for survivors wants you to come speak next month. Share your story. I hesitated, thinking of all the women out there still trapped in their own versions of my story. Yes, I said finally. I'll come. As night fell, I tucked Ethan into bed in what had been my father's childhood room. The walls still held old photographs, Eleanor's careful documentation of a life interrupted. But now new pictures hung alongside them: Ethan's first steps, Lucy's birthday party, Jennifer's art show opening. My phone buzzed, a message from Marcus's lawyer. Another appeal, another attempt to rewrite history. I deleted it without reading it. Some scars don't fade completely. Some restorations leave traces of damage behind. But as I stood in my workshop the next morning, running my hands over smooth wood and honest repairs, I realized something important. Sometimes the most beautiful pieces are the ones that show where they've been broken and carefully, lovingly put back together. Not perfect, but stronger for the mending.